Well, good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to this, what are we calling this, a rebroadcast of the Game 1 from the 2019 AJHL Finals. It was, of course, the Spruce Grove Saints and the Brooks Bandits. Brandon Wincheshin on your screen, right above me, right there. That's Tyler King, former business manager of the Brooks Bandits. Of course, he was at the rink that night. I believe you were, what, sir, running the scoreboard, running the video system, running the replay, running the Jumbotron, running everything but play-by-play?
Yeah, it was either that or selling 50-50 tickets. It was one of the two. I have a very hazy memory of that entire year, but what I do remember is it was a heck of a game.
It was a heck of a game. Unfortunately, if we're going to spoil it, the Saints, they did not come away with a victory. As we know, they did not win the championship that year. The Bandits, they went on to win a national championship. Not a big deal over there. But, no, it'll be a pretty exciting night. We got a couple pretty big guests coming on. I think 8 players, 4 from each side throughout the night. And we're going to, of course, replay all 3 periods from that game. Tyler, got anything to add before we dive into period number 1?
Well, I just think it's great. We're going to get to watch, 2 of the best franchises in Canada go at it once again. I think we're all a little hockey starved right now. And I think to set the scene for a series like this, it was just incredible to see, Spruce Grove, just a 3 seed in the North, make it all the way to the league final. That's very, very rare in the AJHL. Brooks, the odds-on favorites, but both those teams were coming off some pretty difficult divisional finals as well. So I think it was set up to be a fantastic Game 1. You had a great crowd. 1741 was the attendance at the Centennial Regional Arena that night, and they were treated to a real nice back-and-forth battle between 2 high-quality squads.
Well, without further ado, here it is, period number 1 from Game 1 of the 2019 AJHL Final. Oh, yes, and we will be staying here the whole time, too.
Yes, making snide comments to try to even increase the entertainment value even further, right?
Exactly. Our good friend Nathan Crosby on the call alongside Ken Fleury. I believe, is Nathan going to join us later on in the next couple hours?
I need to shoot him a text. I completely forgot to before this started, so
okay, well,
hopefully.
Maybe Nathan will join us. That'll be good. But should we tell them who's coming on, or should we leave it as a little bit of a suspense?
Yeah, let's do them as surprises, because the last thing we want is anyone getting in contact with our potential guests and telling them that us two are trouble, and then preventing them from getting on the broadcast. So I think let's hold it close to our chest for now, and we'll reveal them as they come on.
I agree. And we should also mention the live chat is rolling. If you have question, comment, concern, please throw it in the live chat, and we will do our best to answer it non-sarcastically and with the best knowledge we have.
It was heck of a, just looking at the game starting here, Brandon, what a goaltending matchup this whole series pretty much was. I mean, it was at playoff time that a guy like Pierce Charleston really stepped up his game. Matt Davis was the reason I think the games were as close as they were, especially early on. Even you think to Game 3 of that series, that was a bit of a wider margin. They were still really close early on, and there really truly were blowouts in this league final, which is what you want to see.
Exactly. I believe they were all 1-goal games except for game number 3, which was a little bit more on the Bandits side of things. But hey, it was a great series to say, and a lot of people we should mention didn't think Spruce Grove was going to make it this far last season. A 3 seed coming in, right? You have the Bonnyville Pontiacs, who were the 2 seed that year, and Sherwood Park, who was the number 1 seed, and somehow they managed to get through both of those squads and then take on Brooks in the final.
Hey, that North final was so much fun to watch. I obviously got to watch it pretty closely, even though the games were happening at the same time as ours were that year. And that's one of the things that's so sad about the season ending when it did, even though everyone knows it was the right decision and everything. The rematch this year between those 2 squads wasn't a foregone conclusion, but I think would have been a heck of an entertaining, legendary type of series, as it always is when those 2 teams play each other.
It would have been so fun. And for the Saints, I guess, for those of you that don't know, or probably do know and want to hear it again, they were getting set to take on the Whitecourt Wolverines in round number 2 after a 6-game 4-2 series win over GP. And let's talk about that series a little bit, too. That one, I don't think very many people thought it was going to go 6 games, but it did, and there was a lot of overtime in that series, too.
Well, it was great for your broadcasting career. I mean, the number of calls that go right on the demo tape after one like that, I mean, geez. I was lucky. My first year in the AJHL, I had a Game 7 OT winner in a North Final that I basically rested on my laurels with that call for the rest of my broadcasting career and never came close to it again. But for Spruce and GP to put together such entertaining hockey, and especially for GP after a midseason coaching change and all that, I think it was a real statement series for them too. It proved that the AJHL, which in previous years had kind of been known for playoff series not being too competitive, the league was starting to tighten a little bit, which I think was really good news to see.
I will ask you, I've never called a Game 7. You've called how many?
Ooh, that's a good question. At least 2 of them between Fort Mac and Spruce, my first year and my third year. I called a Game 5 of a 5-game series my second year between Fort Mac and Whitecourt, which they lost. And I think those are the main ones. Did Brooks ever get forced to Game 7 while I was there? I don't
think so.
I mean, I ended up calling lots of elimination games because it was the weirdest thing. Like, Brooks, when they would, go undefeated at the Western Canada Cup like they did in 2017, or when they'd go undefeated in the round robin at the RBC or National Junior A Championship. It's like you've not lost a game, but now you're in elimination mode. It's like you've lost 3 in a playoff series because you go to a semifinal kind of situation. So those were kind of Game 7s for me, and those were less fun and then more fun as time went on.
Let's jump into the live chat here. We got our first question. What is the best AJHL rink? I don't know if we can go number 1. We might have to go over a top 3 scenario. Where should we start with this? What defines the best AJHL rink?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on whose perspective you're looking at it from, right? Like, I know from a broadcast perspective, it can be totally different from the fans' perspective. Us broadcasters have our super-duper, high standards about where we want to be watching the game from, but the average fan coming in the door probably doesn't care nearly as much. And then the question is the player's perspective. And when you're talking about the player's perspective, it can be 2 very different things, because there's some rinks where the home team experience can be very luxurious and fantastic. The visiting team, it can be a lot more difficult. I know our great trainer in Brooks, Karen Fanstone, I think one of her favorites is probably Camrose for the visiting team's experience, because there's so much room in there. You enter right onto the bench, if I remember. It's one of the few ones where I think the visitors go right onto the bench. The home team comes from the Zamboni entrance and goes onto the bench. There aren't many that work like that. But I got to say Brooks myself. I mean, the atmosphere you have in that place, the amenities they have, the experience of hosting big games and it always going well, I think it's going to be at the very least in your top 3.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, I got to say Spruce Grove because I got to be biased. I mean, when the crowd gets in here and you have, like you said, a Fort Mac Spruce Grove Game 7, it's unbelievable. When Sherwood Park was in here last year for Game 6, the AJHL North Final, when Brooks was here in December of this season, when the big names come to town, the place seems to always be rocking.
That December game, I remember that big Spruce Grove win to snap the Bandits' long winning streak. And what was so rare about that, I got to stop and just admire the Simon Gravel goal. Sorry. I'll pick that up in just a second. But I want to make sure we all admire the replay we get from the Centennial Regional Arena video crew. Fully volunteer crew, I should mention to everyone, by the way. And I can't say enough about the people who put broadcasts like this together. What a sensational job they did. I think I was running replay this night, though. This looks like the kind of replay I would run. What a beautiful tip. And Simon Gravel, of course, would go on to score the double overtime winner in Game 2, which we were hoping to rebroadcast, but unfortunately the archive has been lost to history, apparently. So we're going with Game 1, which is
it vanished
still just as fun.
Out of thin air. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was a Las Vegas magic show. What happened in that game? It's gone. It's never coming back.
Exactly. Okay, so yeah, that December game at the Grand Fear Arena. What was the atmosphere was playoff style. It was loud. It was energetic. And what was so interesting to me about that is it's not that unusual for that to happen at the GFA, because they had so many playoff runs where there were games like that all the time. But very rarely would that happen in the regular season. And I was looking at the stats the other day. We're not that far removed. I think my first year in the AJHL, Spruce Grove had less than 400 per game average attendance in the regular season. That's nearly doubled over the course of the last 8 years. And that's been, I think, one of the biggest changes we've seen, not just in Spruce. Some other teams have managed to do that as well. But there are other teams across the country that have seen the complete opposite type of trend. So for Spruce Grove to do that and then be able to have that kind of an atmosphere in a regular season game, I think is a credit to what they've done.
I will say it has doubled. It's been really, really good. I think maybe 900-ish was an average for last season, which is not as much as the CRA, but it's pretty good for the community of Spruce Grove and the Grand Fear Arena.
Yeah, for percentage of capacity, you guys were definitely up there, I think, at the very least. You don't have quite the same amount of room that the brand, well, not brand new, it's still the newest rink in the AJHL, the CRA, but it's getting up in years. This would have been the next season, I think, will be the 10th anniversary. They came in, no, actually it would have been this year, because they came in the CRA opened in the middle of the 09-10 season. So it would have been January of this year, would have been the decade anniversary of the CRA opening. And the next new one we were hoping would be in Spruce Grove, but it may end up being Black Falls. That's the next newest arena in the AJHL.
Yeah, we can always hope, that's for sure. Going back to the best rink in the AJHL, you mentioned Karen Fanstone. I'm going to mention our trainer, Wade Sadaway. He loves Grand Prairie for probably the same reasons that she loves Camrose because the hallways are huge, the bench is right there, and it's easily accessible from a trainer standpoint. But like you said, there's so many different perspectives. There's the broadcasters, there's the coaches, there's the players, there's the fans, there's the trainers, there's the scouts, on and on. Quality of ice is a big thing in the AJHL. I think the AJHL has some of the best ice across the country when it comes to junior A hockey. But if I have to say a number one, you got to go with a space that doesn't have safety netting, so your sight lines are not blocked.
Totally. So sorry, Okotoks, but you're close.
Fan perspective. Maybe it has a video screen
Those would be nice.
for replays and fan interactions and whatnot. It has a great broadcast booth or place. It has a good spot for the coaches to do their thing before the game. It's got good dressing rooms for the players. That's kind of what defines, I think, the best rink in the AJHL. And you got to put Brooks up there. You got to put GP up there.
Fort McMurray's probably one we should mention in there too.
Yeah, Camrose is up there, I think. So that's a pretty solid list for best rink in the AJHL. Again, if you have a question, comment, concern, throw it in the comments section, and the moderator on the other side of the table, Tyler King, will decide if it's worthy to bring on the broadcast, but keep the questions going.
What's interesting, too, about, we talk about arenas that just have that natural ability like Brooks to have that kind of atmosphere. It's actually not that difficult overall. I think back to the 2016 RBC Cup, which was in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan at the Centennial Civic Center, and walking into that building in 2016 and seeing that they had repainted the whole place, they'd renovated the broadcast booth, they'd added an auxiliary media box, they somehow had enough room for all of the teams to have their own dressing rooms throughout the duration of the event. And it's not like they had to spend millions and millions in order to do that. And that's what I love about even the rinks that aren't, your modern ones like the CRA. They have character to them too, which is something that a lot of newer facilities tend to lack. And you can combine that, the old school character with the new style amenities. It just always isn't the easiest thing to do. Sometimes it takes something like a national championship hosting opportunity for you to be able to do that. But I think if a rink like Lloyd can do that, which they did in spades for that event, that means anybody can.
For sure. And great host community. They were great host community. Brooks was last year. I was lucky enough to be a part of it in between the benches, trying to keep my head up and not lose my teeth. It was actually really funny sometimes. I'd have a piece of paper in my hand or a clipboard, and I don't think that's going to do very much if a flying puck is coming at me.
No.
Rancier, I forget how to say his name.
Rancier,
yes,
the goalie.
The backup goalie for PG saved my bacon more than once, so thank you to him. And, I might have not had this face right now looking like this if his glove hand wasn't there a few times.
Well, and you've actually played goaltender at some point in your life, so you would have at least slightly quicker reaction time than I would. I'd be out like a light if one even came within 5 feet of me.
See, but the problem with that is you're trained to step in front of it, not avoid it.
Oh, that's a good point.
So, dodgeball in high school, absolute nightmare. I was the first guy out. Unless I caught it, I was out every time because, I was trained to step in front of the thing, not dodge it.
Yeah, I remember I did some preseason video capture in Okotoks, I think my first year in Brooks, and I was in that space they have between the two benches, which doesn't have the glass.
Yep.
And no, it wasn't with Brooks. It was still with Fort Mac at the time. And I was a little overconfident. I thought, if the puck comes by me, I'll have time to react to it. And I'm just filming something at center ice, and I think I've still got the puck in my view. Someone chips it toward the visitor's bench, and I just feel a gust of wind right by my head, and I see a big black thing. And it didn't hit me, but it was probably within an inch or two of doing that. And ever since then, I've tried not to go down between the benches without being really sure I step back every time it's advisable.
It is scary, and you're going to see right now on this shot, maybe we won't. There was glass there in between the benches.
That's right.
They took the glass out for the NJAC, so it was a lot more of an intimate experience with the players and the ice, but it was also very scary at times.
Oh, I bet.
But no,
it added so much to the event too.
Oh, for sure.
It was so much fun to do, and the response from the community was fantastic. And I mean, heck, what we can't forget is that the Bandits still had a real tough task here with the Spruce Grove Saints, in this league final, even though it was a pretty abbreviated series. I mean, this game one kind of feels like a pivotal moment. I mean, if Brooks kind of has the allure of the CRA overcome in the first game of a series like this, you're probably talking about the series evolving very differently, even though Spruce, put up an even better fight in game two, even after they lost this one.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right there, right on the head, where game 1 and 2 are the defining moments of this series. 2 games that could have easily gone either way. Could have been 2-0 Brooks, 2-0 Spruce, 1-1 going back to Spruce. And you'll just see it's the hockey god, it's the bounces, it's those little things that I don't even think the coaches can control that really contributed to the 2 wins in Brooks for the Bandits in the first 2 games. There's one person that might join the broadcast later. I'm not going to say his name, but he was just on screen in the Ozone for the Spruce Grove Saints. He doesn't play for the Saints anymore. He was not here last year. He was in the Western Hockey League. I'm going to leave it there, and people can guess to see who it is. But I believe it's almost time to bring on our first guest of the night.
Yeah, so why don't I'll grab your phone and give him a ring. We'll see if we can get it all set up there. And if you want to kill my headset for just a little bit, we'll let people enjoy the fantastic commentary of Nathan Crosby and Ken Fleury, and I'll try to set up our first guest for us.
You bet. We'll be back in just a bit.
And Kale Makar for the UMass Minutemen to move on to the national final.
And what a feather in the cap of not just the Bandits, but the AJHL, producing a Hobie Baker Award winner as Babachuk off the draw sends it into the Bandit zone. Shot from the goal line on net. Charleston the save. It was Stanley Cooley who took it for Spruce. Puck rolls back to Charleston. He'll hang on for a whistle and a face-off coming up in the Bandit zone. Quite the year, though, for Kale Makar, and the last few years since he's left Brooks. Of course, won all those trophies with the Bandits, and then goes to UMass. Great success, and now on the brink of entering the NHL.
Yeah, you would have to think, I mean, there's nothing official, but I saw Brian Burke on the Flames broadcast last night basically said that Colorado would have a plane waiting there for him Sunday morning. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, but one thing at a time, and a tremendous season for Kale.
Vashon up the right wing, breaks past Babachuk, has it behind the Spruce Grove net, lost it for a second, got it back, can't get it left point for Scanlon. Mashy digs it out, centering pass to Christie, right point for Lucas, steps in, a shot, tipped on net, and Davis makes the toe save. It went off Babachuk, and the goaltender had to make a slight readjustment there. Christie battling in the near corner, but three Saints around him. Christie stays with it though, pokes it behind the Spruce Grove net. On the far side, Harker gets it out to center ice, fighting up the left wing. Didsbury native steps into the left circle, shoots it on net, gloved and held by Charleston for a whistle. Got to give a shout out to the Didsbury native there, Ken.
Yeah, a local boy, Nathan Crosby's hometown in Didsbury. So I'm wondering, I thought there might be a penalty call there as Chin was coming out, and one of the bands gave him a little slash, and he withered in pain, but the ref wasn't buying in. So I don't mind that standard, and that's what I hope for, is just be consistent. You know, you call the big things, call them. If you call the little things, call the little things, but just so the players know what standard they have to play by.
Simon Gravel will take the draw. Finished the regular season in the AJHL, 9th in points, 5th in goals. He's waved out of the face-off circle. LeMay to take it. One over far side for Tanner Hickey of the Saints. Throws it at the Bandits net, gloved and held by Pierce Charleston. Hangs on for a whistle with exactly 11 minutes to play in the first period. And this line can, ever since Randy Hernandez came into the Bandits lineup in Game 3 of the Okotoks series, what a spark he has been for Simon Gravel and William LeMay.
He really has. I mean, he's always had the speed and the offensive side of the puck, but has he ever picked his compete up? You know, the board battles, he's doing all those defensive things really well as well.
LeMay carries out of his zone. He's tripped up by McGregor. Play continues. Brandon Scanlon with the...
All righty. Well, lots of fun trying to get this one to work, but it's always a nice little experiment to try to get interviews working in the middle of a live stream. We've got number 10, former number 10 of the Brooks Bandits, Arno Vashon, now forward at Colgate University. Arno, first of all, just to play everything safe, can you hear me okay? And if so, thanks a lot for making the time to talk to me.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. You sound fantastic as always. And we're taking a look right now at Game 1 of the 2019 AJHL Final. And I know that whole year is, really fresh in your guys' minds because of how it ended. But what can you tell me about the process that it took and the effort that it took to get to that point? I think we tend to forget you guys had a 6-game series against Okotoks, 2 very close games against Spruce to start off the 2019 AJHL Final. How would you kind of describe the march to the national championship that you guys had and what it took to win another AJHL championship?
Yeah, obviously a lot of people doubted us, saying that we were good last year just because we hosted the national championship. But people don't realize how much work it actually took to win our League One against Spruce Grove, which was a really good team, and then go to the Doyle Cup and obviously fall short, but play another team that was really good that we ended up being in the finals. But just the work overall that we did during the whole season to get up to that point was was amazing, and it was a great process to be a part of.
Was it different when you guys would play a team like Spruce Grove? I mean, when you guys were against those teams that were kind of, not to say the league was too, different in terms of different tiers of teams, but it always seemed like the games felt different, the energy in the building, regardless of where we were, when it was Brooks against Spruce Grove. Would you say it was the same for players, too, when you played a team like that?
Yeah, for sure. Especially me 3 years there. I found that Spruce Groves and the Brooks Bandits really played a similar game. And that's why our games are always tend to be close, which is I think why we went to overtime, the double overtime there in that series.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always found that the rivalry between like us and Spruce Grove was really huge, and it was fun games to be a part of because it was always close and both two good teams. And there's not a lot of teams in the AJHL with as many banners as us, so it's kind of like a race to see who could get the most, which I found was cool.
Yeah, both teams the only ones with the problem fitting the banners in the building, which I know that Brandon and I can probably chat about a little bit as well. That was such a great year for you. 31 goals for you end your AJHL career with more than 70 over the course of 3 years in Brooks. And how would you describe maybe the way that you changed as a player over those 3 years and that maybe prepared you for the NCAA? You obviously got your scholarship and your placement there over the course of your time in Brooks, so that's the obvious thing that changed. You became a D1 caliber player. But would you say you were a different kind of player when your career in Brooks ended as compared to when you started?
I would think so. Obviously, there's a lot of things that stayed the same, kind of my size, my speed, and my shot. But getting used to the league and trusting my abilities as a player really helped me, and it helped me grow into a better player than I am today, which is why I'm thankful that I stayed all 3 years, actually, because it helped me develop and really get better at all my skills and help me out for NCAA, which is what helped me this year in my first year.
Yeah, no question about it. I'll give you one more before we let you go, Arno. How would you describe the NCAA game? You've been through your first year there. Obviously, kind of weird for everybody with the way hockey seasons across the continent ended. But how would you describe your first year at Colgate, and what have you learned so far in the college game?
I loved it. Obviously, Ryan and Scott did a great job preparing me for NCAA with the way they treat the players in Brooks. It was really like a program that resembled an NCAA program. But I think the biggest difference for me was there was always, when you beat someone in NCAA, there's always someone to back them up, and it's harder to kind of get those breakaways of the fast 2-on-1s. But yeah, I think I had a good first year. I had to give a lot of that to Brooks and how they helped me prepare for it.
No question, for sure. Well, Arno, always appreciate you making some time. Good to chat with you again, man, and hope you have a great summer, and hopefully things get back to normal next year, and you can soldier on down there in college hockey.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Perfect. That's Arno Vashon, number 10 at the time for the Brooks Bandits, now plying his trade in the NCAA. And I'm impressed that we managed to make that work, Brandon. How about the tech geniuses we're becoming over here?
Yeah, kind of surprised too, to be honest. But hey, that was one. We got 7 more to go, so hopefully we can do it. And yeah, it sounded great actually. And he's from out east, Ontario.
Yep.
I'm gonna say so.
Yeah, AJX Ontario.
The phone connection's a little spotty, but for the most part, good to have him on and good to check in with those guys that went down to NCAA. And it's interesting you ask how their season ended, and just so many unknowns and question marks. Same with here. And how do you, as a player, I guess maybe a better way to put it is it almost better to lose in a sense than have the rug absolutely pulled out from under you, because at least you have some closure. You know, if the Saints were to, per se, lose to GP, would it feel better for them knowing that they gave it their all and they lost? Because I'll tell you, not knowing what would have happened against Whitecourt and maybe Sherwood Park and maybe Brooks or Okotoks again, I think is a lot harder of a pill to swallow.
I think, yeah, the unknown is the worst part. You don't get any closure out of the effort that you put in over the course of a season. And, you know, as much as, again, we think that way, even though we know there really wasn't any other option. It wasn't like, you know, the AJHL could go on pause like the NHL has. Yeah, I think it's something that's it's gonna linger for a lot of people. But I think ideally, I mean, we're in a hopeful scenario that Junior A will survive and go into next season, maybe in a slightly modified form, but, you know, the less modification, the better. If that happens, there's a lot of players that are going to be back, and they're going to have a chance to get that closure that they were looking for. I especially, I think, feel for the 20-year-olds and the guys who, you know, had their NCAA commitments ready to go. they've got their hockey futures to look forward to, obviously, but I think that's going to be one that kind of lingers for a lot of people there.
I'm sure, and I guess if you could take a positive away from it, it would be that they got a little bit more fire underneath them coming into next season with a little bit more to prove, because they ultimately didn't get to prove it at the end of this season.
No, I totally agree. I think it's going to be a lot of fire and a lot of teams at pretty much every level when you go into next season, but we shall see. Those decisions will be made by people higher up in the organizational charts than us. We'll just sit back and hopefully enjoy. I'm really hoping that things do come back together, because there's so many teams that were building some real good things in the AJHL over the course of the last season, and it'd be good to see a lot of those pay off for sure.
100%. This is Game 1 of the 2019 AJHL Final. Tyler King is up there, Brandon Wincheshin right here, and yeah, it's just nice to catch up and watch some hockey. Although it's not live hockey, it is some hockey, and get some sports on the screen and catch up with a few players that were in this series that have now moved on and are coming back to both these programs.
And just such a we can even see, just watching in the big corner of the screen there, just the back and forth nature of pretty much every Spruce Grove Brooks game. They always tended to start out like this. You've rarely had games that got out of hand in the first period. You did have games that would get out of hand at different points over the course of the 60 minutes, but you always tended to see that back and forth early on, and that's kind of what we're seeing here in this first period.
Once again, if you want to drop a comment or a question, please do so, and we'll do our best to answer it. The one we had earlier was the best rink in the AJHL. I think we made a top 3 of.
I made like a top 6. There's only like 15
5
teams in the league.
What do we make a top? Okay, a top 5. Let's go. I'm going to say GP's in there, Camrose is in there, Brooks is in there. I guess maybe those are the top 3 in my mind.
Yeah. It all depends on how you we're doing the same discussion again, but it depends on how you measure it. Because Fort Mac for atmosphere is very tough to overcome. Just the sound in that building. Anytime you get even a half decent crowd in there, no place reverberates like that place does, and that's what makes it so much fun. And there's even the ones that are. What's funny is it also depends on when you've been watching AJHL hockey. I can't find it anymore, but there used to be a video on YouTube of the 1994 Centennial Cup in Olds, Alberta, at the Olds and District Sports Complex, and that huge, one side of stands is absolutely packed to the gills for the 1994 final. And I remember, I've been to that rink a billion times. It hasn't changed much since 1994. And you get that feeling like, wow, if you could recapture that energy and that magic, you'd probably have just as good an atmosphere as Brooks, GP, Camrose, and any other place when those places are packed too.
Exactly. And Fort Mac, too, just the intimate fan experience, I think, how close in proximity the crowd is to the rink has to help with the atmosphere. I don't think you get that in too many rinks nowadays.
No question. And that's due to the renovations they did for the 2000 RBC Cup. They basically crammed as many seats as they physically could while still meeting building codes and making sure the roof wasn't going to collapse. So it was good moves by them for sure, and it's paid off for them for the last few years. And now with Gord Thibodeau back in the it's kind of funny the teams we're talking about. Gord Thibodeau's back in Fort McMurray. Mike Van de Kamp is back in Grand Prairie. The North Division would be pretty interesting if those guys can recapture the magic they were able to achieve the last time they were with those franchises.
I would be pretty scared of the GP Storm next year if I was any team in the AJHL. When you look at the guys that they have returning next year that really gave the Saints run for their money this year in the first round, it's pretty frightening, to be honest. There's a lot of guys on that squad that are not moving on. I believe Jackson Wozniak, the captain, is one of the only ones, one of the only 20-year-olds. Carter Coles as well, I believe, but other than that, a lot of big names coming back. Just pulling up the roster quickly, a guy like Nathan Beard coming back, Santa Lucia, Nate Morgan, he made the Saints pay a few times, Ethan Strang, Kwiatkowski, just a few guys off the top of my head, and all guys that have a lot of firepower that could really do some damage and across the entire league, I guess, this year.
Oh, I totally agree. I think your ideal scenario is that the league continues to tighten as it did most recently. People talk about what the BCHL has accomplished over the last few years, and it comes down to the fact that when Penticton, Vernon, those types of top-tier teams were starting to pull away, the solution was never to try to bring those franchises down. It was for everyone else to elevate themselves up to that level. And then within a few years, you had a situation where, high-flying, top-tier first-place teams could get upset in the first round. It was pretty interesting to see.
It was. One other thing that we were going to talk about that was maybe a little of a goofy contest would be ranking the coaches' offices across
Because we've been in so many of them.
the AJHL. Yes, we've been in pretty much every single one now over the last couple of years. So what defines a good coach's office? Is it a big flat screen TV on the wall?
I think you'd have to ask some head coaches. Like we probably if this becomes a regular feature on Saints YouTube, or we create a separate AJHL video podcast YouTube channel, or whatever this blows up into after it's gets fantastic reviews, as anything you and I do always gets. I think we should bring some of them on and ask, because you've also got a decent number of coaches who've worked for multiple franchises and could probably rate them on that basis. I think the biggest thing that a coach might tell you, maybe they wouldn't, it would probably depend on the guy. I find the ones that look the most luxurious aren't necessarily the biggest or with the biggest TVs. It's, do they have natural light coming in? Or are they like a storage closet off of a hallway somewhere in the rink? Those are the two main categories for me. Do you have windows, or are you going to get a vitamin D deficiency if you spend too much time in your office? I think those are going to be the big determining factors. And I can say both Brooks and Spruce Grove, top-tier franchises, no vitamin D deficiencies for either head coach based on their office locations.
Yep, very true. It would be interesting to, for one, get some kind of show going, some kind of video podcast, and two, get coaches on to ask them that and a whole bunch of other questions about their time in the league and their expectations coming up. We do hope the league does come back as scheduled in September with everything going on. Hopefully the ice can go back into these barns in later August. And one thing that I asked our skills coach a couple of weeks ago on the Saints podcast was, how are you guys recruiting this year, and how are you dealing with no spring camp, no prospects camp, no vets camp? It's going to be, cross your fingers right now, maybe a full main camp, but it might be an abbreviated main camp with a very slim preseason schedule. How are you recruiting? How are you making your team for next year without, per se, doing all those things that you would in normal seasons?
It's uncharted territory, and it's amazing when we watch back old games like this and almost think, boy, was it easier to do pretty much everything back then. I mean, we would think about the challenges we would face as organizations, as video guys between you and me. Obviously, the coaches probably think the same thing. You never got kind of put on your heels like that and forced to improvise as they're going to be over the next few months. I mean, the only advantage to some extent is everyone's pretty much in the same boat when it comes to this, and everyone's pretty much adapting the same way. So it's not like anyone's getting a particular advantage over everybody else. And the thing, too, is we can't really predict how it's going to work out because we still don't know what the parameters are going to be for the return of hockey in the fall of 2020. We hope it's as routine as possible, but I think everyone's preparing for the potential that it isn't. AJHL advantage here is all your teams are within one province. So in terms of measuring what your health authorities are going to require and things like that, it's going to be a little bit easier from an AJHL perspective. You're not dealing with going across borders like the WHL is. And from Alberta's perspective, not to jinx anything, news has been good over the last few months. We definitely hope that continues, not just for hockey's sake, but for everyone's sake.
Yeah, the province of Alberta is doing pretty good as compared to the rest of the world, I will say, and when it comes to dealing with this pandemic. And like you said, a lot of things that were so routine last year or the year before are just going to be so much more thought of and so much more questioned this year. You know, you're going to a coach for an interview. Can you stand right beside him?
Yeah.
You know, can you get a foot away? Maybe not. Maybe now it's got to be a little bit of a gap. The fans is the biggest thing. You know, you go to an NHL game or a bigger venue and there's a lot more space. Granted, there are more people, but you go to these municipality rinks and recreational centers where the lobbies are so small and the doorways are so small, and these rinks aren't used to holding thousands of people when someone's got to use the washroom or go to the concession or even getting into the door at the start of the game. Is there going to be restrictions on, you know, how quickly everybody can come in? Are you going to have a group of people come in at 15 minutes before and then another group at game time? There's so many questions, and like you said, the world that we knew 2 years ago, I don't think will ever be the same.
Yeah, the answer to all those questions is we don't know, for sure. And that's why I enjoy. I've watched quite a few teams that have done the rewind broadcasts. I obviously watched yours a few weeks ago. Penticton's been doing quite a few. Brooks rebroadcast the National Junior A Championship final. Coburg rebroadcasted theirs, and I watched until the end of the third period, and that was about it for obvious reasons.
Could handle.
But it's good to see. I love how teams are adapting to this reality, and it's allowed them to show off their technical capabilities too. I mean, if we'd had a sudden delay in hockey or a premature end of the season back in 2011, 2012, there weren't many teams equipped to do something like this. I mean, even what we're doing right here, 2 guys commenting on a game, having guests on throughout it. This is a sign of where junior A teams are going, and I just hope the damage from this delay, which we know is going to happen to everybody, isn't enough to curb that progress, because I've found it really accelerate over the last 5 years. I mean, Spruce Grove's a good example. I've talked a lot about how they've impressed me with the strides they've taken. I think it goes for a lot of franchises in this league and others across Canada for sure.
Take a quick recess here, I think, for the last minute of period number 1. Come back, I think, with another special guest. Turn over to Nathan Crosby here for the last minute of period number 1.
Chin stops him, but got it ahead to Lee. Lucas carries in the final 60 seconds of the period. Christie trying to get the puck to settle down in the Saint zone, but Spruce able to lift it out just over the reach of Hernandez. Puck rolls on its side into the Brooks zone. Ethan Lund, number 6 for Brooks, back to get it. He'll leave far side for Wolski. Knocks it off the boards to center ice for Mashy. Him and Hickey were tied up. Saints shoot it back in. Not enough for icing. Wolski has to get it with half a minute to go in the period. Carter Wolski has the puck. Over 200 games in the AJHL regular season and playoff combined for Wolski. Carries up the left wing. Lost it on the shot in the far corner. Recovered Christie. Back mid-blue line for Mashy. 13 seconds to go to Hernandez at the right point. Shoots it off a Saint. Redirects control with 7 seconds left in the period. Wolski at his own blue. Up the right wing for Ryan Mashy. He's checked. He lost the puck. And the first period will come to a close. The buzzer sounds. 1-0 is the score in favor of the Brooks Bandits. The game's only goal so far coming 3 minutes and 2 seconds in. Gravel's 5th from LeMay and Lucas.
As our coverage continues here of Game 1 of the 2019 AJHL Final, Tyler King is alongside myself, Brandon Wincheshin. It's good to be doing this. Good to get back in the rink for one, but back on the headset, a thing that we wear quite a bit throughout the winter time, and it's been on the table for the last couple months, as I'm sure a lot of guys' skates are. And for a lot of people that usually hit the ice 1 or 2 times a week in the off season to start training, there hasn't been much ice for anybody to get on here in the last couple months. Another interesting factor playing into next season. As we line up a few more guests here on tonight's special program, we're going to dive into the second period. Right now, it's a 1-0 lead for the Brooks Bandits. Hopefully, the tides change a little bit here for the logo I'm wearing on my shirt. That's the Spruce Grove Saints. I believe they got one, let's say 8 or so minutes inside the period. Let's take a listen. Here it is, the second period of Game 1 of the 2019 AJHL Final.
It's time to get back to the action. Here's Nathan Crosby in the broadcast booth.
With Ken Fleury live from the Centennial Regional Arena in Brooks. Game 1 of the AJHL Final. We're set to begin the second period. The Brooks Bandits up 1-0. And this is the 6th time in these playoffs the Bandits will begin the second with a lead. They've won all of the previous 5 matches. That all-important first goal, Ken, and judging on how good these two teams are defensively, great goaltending, every goal is going to really count.
It really is, and it'll be interesting to see if the Bandits can get a little more time and space out there. The Spruce Grove Saints really play tight to that puck in both zones. They don't seem to have a ton of an odd man push because they're so focused on defense. So we'll see if they change it up and take a few more chances, or if the Bandits can put a little more pressure on down low, because the Bandits typically can go in on the forecheck and pick some pucks up, and they're having a very difficult time doing that against this hockey club.
Bandits defending to our right in the second period. Puck is down, we're underway. The Saints control off the draw. Pass up.
Alrighty, we're back on the air. It's period number 2 of the 2019 AJHL Final. And number 14 of the Brooks Bandits, Ryan Mashy. Can you hear me? Did our connection work right?
Yeah, it's good. How's it going, TK?
It's going great. Ryan, great to hear from you again. We're watching back Game 1 of the 2019 Final. Nail-biting win for you guys over the Spruce Grove Saints that, of course, then got followed up with that great classic double overtime game. Even though I know the big memory is winning the national championship, what do you guys remember of the march to that national junior A championship? A tough series against Okotoks, this one against Spruce Grove, which was a sweep but not a blowout or anything like that. How would you describe the task that it was to get another AJHL championship that year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we knew we were in the national final already, and we didn't really need to win the league. But I think as a team and a collective group, we decided that we had something to prove and just decided to win everything and go to the Doyle. And play PG a couple times before we got the chance at the Natty.
It was such a great year for you, especially, just your second year in Junior A. You went from 20 points your first year to 65 points your second year, including 34 goals. How would you describe the change in you as a player from year one to year two that made you such a big contributor to that big season for Brooks?
I think I just felt a lot more confident. Obviously, like being around the guys for 2 years, it made a huge difference. And just getting to know some of the guys, and obviously me, Arno Vashon, and Ray Christie had a really good bond. And I think they attributed a lot to my success, and we just really had a great year all around.
How would you describe that group of players, especially? I think that's something, we don't see in the stats. We don't see how, united a group is, what the mood is in the dressing room. Even thinking back to your minor hockey days, thinking to the college team you're on now, how would you compare what that group of players in Brooks was that year and how you guys were behind the scenes?
Yeah, it was definitely special. I've never been on a team that close for as long as I can remember. And even moving to college, like you live with guys and stuff like that. You get really close to them, but I think that Brooks team was definitely the closest team I've ever been on. We just all really counted on each other and all really believed in each other, and it made a huge difference throughout the entire year.
How much do you guys still keep in touch with each other, too? Do you find yourselves, texting back and forth? The anniversary of it just happened. I'm sure you guys probably talked about that.
Yeah, we actually had a Zoom call on the national championship and watched the Brooks live stream. And
nice.
Obviously, I keep in touch with Brendan Scanlon and Simon Boyko, mostly because they live close to me. And obviously, I play a lot of Xbox with Simon Boyko lately.
So keep in touch with each other. No, absolutely. Yeah. What would you say about the switch to NCAA hockey this year? Your first year at RPI, getting to 16 games. I know an up and down year for you to get things started, but there's so many players who go through that kind of college hockey route of kind of getting acclimatized to it in year one, and then as you move along, you're almost a completely different player. How would you maybe describe the learning experience of college hockey this past year?
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a step up from what I was used to, and obviously going through some injuries was a little bit of a setback this year, but I think it was like my first year in Brooks. Like obviously that was a learning curve as well, and I think I will be able to develop a lot throughout this summer, and obviously I developed a lot last year being at college, and I just think I'll be able to step in and be a better player in my second year, just like I was in Brooks.
I'll ask you a simple question that maybe has a complicated answer. What do you miss the most about being a Brooks Bandit?
Honestly, like the ping pong. Ping pong was really fun. Like,
yeah,
it got all the boys together, and obviously, like we just had a lot of like battles in that change room, and we just stuck really close together throughout it. And I think like the ping pong and the bubble hockey brought us even closer together when we were and waiting for like workouts or practice and stuff like that.
I don't know if that's public knowledge, the bubble hockey table, by the way. You might be releasing some trade secrets there. I don't want to get you in trouble, but let's just say you guys were taken well care of over the course of that year.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Ryan, I really appreciate you making some time. Good chatting with you as always. Congrats on a good start to your college career, and here's hoping things get back to normal for you and you can keep it on going in year two.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, DK. It was great to be on with you and share some experiences.
Absolutely. That's Ryan Mashy, number 14 in this game we're watching right now in the 2019 AJHL final. It was a heck of a season for him, and he was one of the best stories to come out of those 2 years in Brooks, a guy who had his rookie season the year prior and really came on near the end of the season. There was a stretch of time where his line, I can remember, was among the best on the team and started driving a lot of the offense, and there was a lot expected of him going into year two, and he became your prototypical power forward and then kind of showed off the scoring depth of the Brooks Bandits. And Brandon, I'm sure you noticed it. It's been a strength of the Spruce Grove Saints for years and years too. In Junior A, when you have scoring depth, when more than 3 players, more than 6 players can be the ones you rely on over the course of a game, it totally changes what your potential is. And I've yet to see those one-line teams. A lot of them have put together really good regular seasons. You very rarely see it last into playoff time.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we always like to brag about here as a Spruce Grove Saints broadcaster is we can throw any one of the 4 lines on the ice, and it's not like you're ranking them 1, 2, 3, 4. They're 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and I think the Spruce Grove Saints staff here and the GM and the coaches and the scouts and recruiters have done a great job in making 4 number 1 lines, and really you could put our 4th line fourth line out against the other team's first line, and I don't think they're going to have that much trouble. And, of course, you have a power play unit and a PK unit, guys that are better at the special teams. But, like you said, for teams to win in this league and across the country, I think you need 3-4 lines that are all pretty equal in skill level and that can all put the puck in the net and play a 200-foot game.
That's the sign of a great franchise, when the broadcasters put the air quotes around fourth line. I mean, I did it in Brooks every year. You guys do it in Spruce Grove, and there are some teams that can't. They'll say, oh, boy, here comes the fourth line. But I remember even my first year in Brooks, Jesse Pereira was a guy who on the depth chart was always listed as a fourth-line guy, but he ended up with 20-plus goals and went to Canisius College, NCAA Division I, and it was really a sign of the great depth that Brooks had and its ability to generate players. And that's something I'm noticing as I'm watching this game. I mean, you're not as much looking at the score and the plays because you know what happens in this game, but when you look at each player and you pick out the numbers, it's a very fun where are they now kind of game, because so many players from these teams went on to NCAA Division I and could go on to much more beyond that. And it's really a testament to what the AJHL has been able to do over the last few years. Those kinds of stories for some franchises are no longer becoming the exceptions. For a lot of them, they're becoming the rule.
Yeah, no, 100% I agree. And just trying to get our next guest ready to go here. It's from the Saints side of things.
I know, so we'll have to shut up for a little bit, which is a big rarity for me.
We'll see if we can get him on here momentarily. But right now it's 1-0, TK, and you were in the building. Mm-hmm. What was your thought process, mindset right now at this point in the hockey game to the best of your memory?
Well, I can remember one thing, and some people may notice. I'll tell the story here if you want to try to get your guest work in there, because I can ramble on for quite a long time. Some of you may have noticed a few times over the course of this broadcast, the audio cuts out or the screen suddenly flashes to blue. And what happened was it was a faulty video cord. That main camera, this one that's on right now, this camera, the high-up camera, which Brooks stopped using after the National Junior A Championship, it was the biggest pain in the butt of anything I've ever had to work with. And the cord that connected it to the video system, if you moved the camera too much, it would just disconnect. And the problem wasn't just that the video came through that camera, but the audio of the radio broadcast also came through that camera. So I remember over the course of this broadcast, I'm running the replay system, and at one point I have to unplug that camera from the input that feeds it into the video system, had to go and get a spare SDI cable. Brandon knows what I'm talking about. You don't all have to know what kinds of video cabling we're using here, and run it from the camera manually into the back of our video rack. So there's a little inside baseball kind of stuff for those of us who have to run video systems, but it's always fun when you test everything out ahead of time and everything seems all good and ready to go, and then as soon as you hit that on-air button, that's when things like wires and feeds and technology decide to start giving you grief. And that's why, I don't mean to jinx it, but this live stream has been going awfully well. I mean, we spent about an hour and a half beforehand testing everything. And again, not trying to jinx it, but there haven't been any massive disasters quite yet. And I think that's a testament to the planning on our part, which didn't pay off for me quite as well in this broadcast in the AJ final.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I think our next guest is ready. Here, we're going to bring him on. Here he is. Jordan Byro joins the broadcast. He was a big part of the Spruce Grove Saints for the last 3 seasons. He had a huge hand to play in the playoff run that we're watching right now. Of course, this is last year's AJHL final. Jordan, thank you very much for taking the time here today.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Hear you loud and clear, and Tyler King, cross your fingers, everything's still working. Let's talk about this playoff run that we're in right now. It was the 2019 run last season. You guys start the playoff run not as the first seed, not as the second seed, but as the third seed. And you take on the Drayton Valley Thunder in the first round, a team that pushed you guys to game number 4. I think it was Corey Babachuk that scored the series-winning goal with 9.8 seconds left in the third period of game number 4. But talk about that series in Drayton Valley and how it was a little bit tougher than maybe you would have thought to get through that Thunder squad.
Yeah, they tested us for sure. They were a big, strong, fast team, and we ran into a good goalie. One of my buddies, actually, Luke Lush, and they tested us, and it was just kind of a little bump in the road to keep going there in the playoffs.
And then probably the biggest surprise for everybody in last year's playoff run was a 4-0 sweep of the Bonnyville Pontiacs. And we take it back to, I'm sure, one of the biggest goals of your career. Game number 2, double overtime. Byro wraps it around the net. Somehow it banks off 3 shin pads and over the goal line. What do you remember from that series and that game?
Yeah, they were obviously a good team and a quick team going in as a third seed there. The second, we just kind of went in with confidence. And then, that game, I just wrapped the puck around, and I think it went off the skate or whatever, but we were all just so tired and just so relieved that it went in. So it was definitely a good feeling for myself and to get the guys that win.
And then probably one of the biggest series in the Edmonton area over the last, I'm going to say what, Tyler, since the last time the Oilers made the playoffs?
I'm not going to get into criticizing them. I will eventually be working in their offices again.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it was the Saints and it was the Sherwood Park Crusaders in last year's AJHL North Final. And Jordan, I know you're from Sherwood Park, and there was a ton of family and friends, whatnot, in the crowd for both arenas for that whole series. Walk us through that series a little bit and just the emotion of playing against Sherwood Park.
Yeah, for sure. It was a really fun series for myself to play in, being from Sherwood Park. And I know a lot of people that I knew from the area were counting us out. And even when we went down 2-0 there, we had a lot of confidence, and we just turned the page, learned from it. And when we came out and won it there in Game 6, it was an unreal feeling. I had a lot of buddies on that team too, so it was definitely nice to beat them there.
100%. And then you guys take on Brooks in the final, and although it didn't maybe go the way that you guys would have thought it would have went, these first two games that we're watching Game 1 right now, they were very close games. What do you remember from being on the ice in those two games and just those little bounces, how they could have went either way?
Yeah, I mean, they were for sure an unreal team. They were really fast and strong, and I thought that we were turning it up and going into that series playing really well. And like you said, a lot of the games were really close, and we gave it our all. And I guess obviously lost, but it was a great team that we faced there.
And then this season, I mean, it ends with the final chapter left unwritten. The rug kind of pulled out from underneath the guys, not knowing how it would have ended. That first round against Grand Prairie, they take you guys to 6 games. Probably the most memorable goal that I'll say right now in my career working for the Spruce Grove Saints was that face-off win for yourself. You win it back to Nick Larry, ties the game with 2.1 left in game number 1. What goes through your head, or do you pull the Larry card and say you blocked out when that happened?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That's something I pride myself is face-offs, and I went out there, won the draw, and Larry just kind of ripped it and went in. And I just remember kind of going to the net, seeing it fly past the goalie, and I just turned and just skated as hard as I could, jumping, and jumped up on the pile, and that's all I remember is just that rush of adrenaline, which was awesome.
And we just watched on screen the Saints tied the game. Ryan Peckford, of course. Who else would it be putting the puck in the net? Talk about playing with that guy.
There we go. Sorry, go ahead, Brendan.
Tyler takes a crack at a beer on the other side.
Unreal player there, and just like going back to last year against Grand Prairie, we didn't even have him for the series, and we were excited to head into the next series, getting him back, but obviously things got cut short. But yeah, he's a great player, easy guy to play with.
And Jordan, 44 points for yourself in 50 games this past season. Overall, a very successful regular season for yourself, and another successful playoffs, 8 points in 6 games. And because of all that success, you're off to Colorado College next year. Describe the jump for you now and what you kind of expect for yourself going from the AJHL to NCAA. And I know you have an older brother, Brandon Byro. He's a proud member of the Saints at one point as well. He's now graduated from Penn State. I'm sure he's given you a few pointers as well.
Yeah, for sure. With all this downtime here in quarantine, I feel like it's a really good time to try and pass players, because I got a lot of stuff in my basement, gym-wise, a lot of equipment. So I'm just working as hard as I can every day, shooting pucks and putting that time in, because honestly, there's nothing else to do. So give myself the best chance to go in next year and make an impact for myself and the team.
And just your brother one more time, of course, now signed and a member of the Buffalo Sabres. What was that like for your family?
Yeah, it was a super crazy week. Just hearing everything that's kind of getting shut down, and then me committing, and I knew that he had some offers, and just kind of deciding there. So it was definitely a really exciting week. Obviously, he's put in a lot of time and a lot of work. That it's really awesome to see his success, and I'm super excited to see what he does in the future.
Well, Byro, appreciate the time here today, and stay safe throughout all of this, and best of luck next season, and hopefully you guys get to start on time down in Colorado.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Jordan Byro joining the broadcast, Game 1 here, the 2019 AJHL Final, and TK cracked a beer there. I think maybe that was a pop. I'm not sure when Ryan Peckford put that puck in the net. It's a 1-1 tie right now. There it is. No free ads.
No, good point, yeah.
How are you feeling now? What's your mindset?
Oh, I'm a little nervous.
In this hockey.
Really nervous about how this one's going to go, Brandon.
1-1. We're midway through.
You know what's funny, though, in your talk with Jordan Byro there, you make me feel old talking about Brandon Byro going on to his pro career. I saw him play as a 16-year-old in the AJHL when he started in Spruce Grove back in 14-15. I had to look it up there. First year in the AJ, 54 points in 57 games. And I remember talking to I think it would have been Jason McKee back then before a game, because Spruce Grove wasn't as known for bringing in guys who were still minor hockey eligible. It did happen, but it wasn't usually a huge part of their offense. And asked him about Brandon Byro, and he said this was a guy that was going to play a lot of time for them. Ended up being exactly the case. I mean, I'm pretty sure he might have been on their top power play unit that year, if not at least on the number 2 unit, and that was a sensational Spruce Grove team that year.
Yeah, it was. And congratulations again. For those of you that don't know, it was a crazy week for that family. I believe Byro, or Jordan, I should say, commits to Colorado College on Monday, and older brother Brandon signs an NHL contract on Wednesday. So a serious turn of events there for that family in just a 3-day span. Congratulations to them, and hopefully Jordan can follow in his brother's footsteps with the pro career after he finishes a successful one at Colorado College. Next guest, I think 5 minutes away here, another member of the Spruce Grove Saints. He was a captain. That's where I'm going to leave it.
Yeah, he's really narrows it down.
Also now down in the United States, playing NCAA hockey. Just finished his first year. A lot of accolades he had this year. A lot of awards from the school that he was at. Yeah, go ahead.
No, if you want, we could throw this to Nathan Crosby for a bit, because I feel like this is a very key power play that comes up right here.
Let's bring him on. Is he video coming on, or are we gonna have to phone him on?
No, sorry. What I mean, I'll bring him on next hour, but I mean his play-by-play here, because I'm pretty sure this. No, hang on. This is a Spruce Grove power play, isn't it? It's the one after this. It's the power play after this. That's a big one. My bad.
Really? Because does a team score during that power play?
It may or may not be the case.
Is it a red team?
Stressy, any red in the Spruce Grove jersey? Probably. Let's go with that.
All right, let's throw it over to Nathan for a bit here, alongside Ken Fleury. Call game one.
Left circle, shot by Peckford, blocked by Scanlon. 48 seconds left in the arc line construction PK. Right point for TJ Lloyd. Pass off the stick of Tice. Goes high, but playable for Spruce Grove. Left point for Babachuk. He shoots it on net. Glove saved by Charleston. He doesn't hang on to it. It's loose behind the goal line. Andrew Lucas tries to shoot it out. He won't. Turnover. TJ Lloyd shot blocked by Jake Lee. He didn't see it where it landed. He would have been able to clear it. Babachuk, mid-blue line, slap shot wide right. 20 seconds on the PK. Another shot from TJ Lloyd is blocked. And the Bandits, with 15 seconds left on this PK, desperately trying to get it out. Scanlon in the far corner to Jake Lee. They can't move it out. Here's Tanner Hickey for Spruce Grove. Shot over the head of Charleston. Goes out of play. It went off his stick. And the face-off, I think, is coming. I'm not sure where they're going to put it with 5 seconds to go on the penalty kill. We'll get another look at it here on the Hickey shot. Did it go off of Brooks' stick? Looks like off Andrew Lucas.
The crossbar.
And then the crossbar.
Yeah. But it ends up coming outside. It was direct off the shot. So the Bandits, under a lot of pressure there, a long way away from their bench, are able to get most of this penalty kill. Face-off coming outside here with 5 seconds left in the PK. 8:11 left in the period.
And Gravel wins the draw cleanly. Back to Wolski, shoots it off the glass. Stopped by Hickey. He'll throw it back at the Brooks net. Charleston saves it and hangs on for a whistle. The Bandits kill off the Simon Boyko penalty. We step aside with 8:02 to go in the second period. Tied 1-1.
Proud sponsor of the Brooks Band.
Okay, got you off for 1 minute.
Is a division of Tartan of Canada, providing complete construction and execution solutions to support projects in the oil and gas energy industry, offering expert maintenance and operation support and empowered people with creative ideas. When you want first-rate customer experience and dedication to safety excellence, you choose Arcline Construction.
Playoffs are here. Wishing the Bandits all the best in their fight for the cup. Thank you for always making us proud to call you our hometown team. Go get 'em, boys.
Drive shafts, flywheels, pipe rollers, and more. You're using specialized equipment that lets you work smarter, not harder. But when a custom part breaks, you can't outsmart that. You need Markin Machining. When you can't find it anywhere else, Markin Machining can make it, mill it, cut it, drill it, thread it, or fabricate it. And in many cases, it's even better than the original part. For custom fabrication, repairs, custom treading, line boring, and more, get Markin Machining, a proud sponsor of the Brooks Bandits.
1-1 is the score in game one with 8:02 to play in the second period. Welcome back to the AJHL final. CRA and Brooks is where we're at, along with Ken Fleury. I'm Nathan Crosby. Simon Gravel scoring in the first period for Brooks. Ryan Peckford for the Saints in the second. That's where we stand. Out of the media timeout, the face-off to the right of Charleston. Gravel will take it against Rempy. Linesman waiting to drop the puck. Gravel waved out Hernandez to take it. And the Saints win it back. Left point, Babachuk. Right side for Harker, but LeMay takes the puck away from him. LeMay carrying up the left wing on a 2-on-1 to Gravel. Gravel shoots Davis with the blocker save. A nice saucer pass from LeMay, but the Bandits can't finish it off that time.
Davis, a real solid save getting over on that not fooled from the pass across.
Rempy carries it up the right wing. Wolski takes him into the boards. Puck behind the Bandits.
Hey, welcome back inside the broadcast. 7:35 left in period number 2. It's a 1-1 tie. We're joined now with former captain of the Spruce Grove Saints, TJ Lloyd. I got to admire the shirt you're wearing. How are things going, my man?
Things are going good, dude. Obviously weird times, but finding a bunch of new ways to keep busy, and yeah, it's all good out here in Saskatchewan.
Back in Lloydminster, are you?
Back in Lloydminster, we actually live 15 minutes north of town at a lake called Sandy Beach. So got a pretty nice view here, and got a hockey net set up, a workout place. So things are rolling pretty good.
So what you're saying is it's really easy to social distance out there.
Very easy to social distance. Yeah, I think the alone time is good for some people. Life was getting pretty crazy. I think this is kind of calming everyone down, and hopefully things are starting to look better and can start up soon, and everyone will be ready to go for the new future, whatever kind of that looks like.
So we're taking a look right now at Game 1 of the 2019 AJHL Final. I know you guys didn't come out on top of this one, but let's take it back to that season and just describe for you what it was like to captain the Spruce Grove Saints.
I mean, yeah, obviously, like, huge honor, storied program. That's the Spruce Grove is the place that I identified in midget that I wanted to play in. To be able to play all 3 of my years there in junior hockey, winning 1 championship and going to the finals the other year, it's obviously I was very proud of that. And the people that I've met along the way, that beats out every experience. So, like, the people that Spruce Grove brings in, it was awesome. I've met people that I'll be friends with for the rest of my life, and it sucked that we couldn't beat the Brooks Bandits, but they were absolutely loaded up that year, and credit to them, they had a really good team.
And unfortunately, we just watched Ryan Mashy put a puck in the net. I know TK's mic is muted. He wants me to put it on. I'm going to put it on for a split second because Ryan Mashy just gave the Bandits a 2-1 lead.
Yay.
That's all you had to say is yay.
Yeah, that's good. I don't want to dominate this broadcast too much.
Back with TJ. And TJ, your first year down south with Bowling Green in the NCAA. Of course, you go there and make an immediate impact, 11 points for yourself in 38 games, but you were named the Rookie of the Year for your squad. Talk about your year down south and how the transition was for you into the NCAA.
Yeah, I think I was definitely prepared to go into the NCAA. I knew I could play at that level after playing 3 years in the AJHL, and what a great job that league does to get its players ready for the next level. You obviously seen the players, and Kale Makar is a pretty good example of that. And once you get down to the stage, it's awesome. Great support by like the school, which was different. We don't really have that in Canada. Like the school's kind of its community on its own. So that's really cool to kind of be a part of, and everyone's out there cheering for you. And then, just having games on the weekdays, it just, kind of makes them that much more important. Almost you're kind of just waiting for Friday and Saturday night and ready to go. And the student sections are loud, and college hockey it's awesome.
How would you describe maybe the schedule change? I've always wanted to ask players, how do you go from playing 60 to 80 games, depending on how you do in the playoffs, down to maybe only 50 if you go all the way?
I think a lot of players can use that time to, develop, and you're in the gym a lot more. Practices are more, I guess, kind of game-like during the week, especially Monday, Tuesday. You're battling, and you're battling against 24-year-old men on your team, and everyone's on the team is trying to make each other better for the weekend. And, there's like 26 players on a team, so not everyone's going to be in the lineup every night. So during the week, it's healthy competition, highly competitive. You're in the gym lots, and then you're on your own for school. And then, that kind of everything quiets down by Friday. And then you get to go to the rink, and once you walk out there and you hear the student section, it just brings me goosebumps right now. And I honestly can't wait to start things off in 2020 here.
Coming back to Spruce Grove, TJ, you won a championship with the Saints in 2018. How often do you still keep in touch with the core group and all your buddies off that team from 2018?
It's pretty often. Like, we were even talking in the group chat today. It's just anytime you hear about someone's just buzzing in the group chat, and a few guys will always comment. So the group chat's going off about once a week, and then you're obviously having like one-on-one conversations with guys, just checking to see how they're doing, because you grow so close to them, being playing junior hockey and being with them pretty much 24/7.
Well, TJ, appreciate your time, and stay safe right now, and we look forward to seeing you back in that orange uniform, hopefully in September.
Thanks, Ewan. It's nice talking to you as always.
TJ Lloyd joining the broadcast, former Spruce Grove Saint captain, now a proud member of the Bowling Green State Falcons. TK, I'll turn it back over to you. We mentioned Kale Makar, and I know that you can talk about that guy for probably the rest of the broadcast. Or do you not know who that is?
Did he play for Brooks?
I don't think so, did he?
And he went, I remember, he went on to one of the NCAA teams in Massachusetts.
Do you want me to look him up on
Not
Elite Prospects?
Lowell. It wasn't Lowell. It wasn't BU. It wasn't BC. I think there's a University of Massachusetts.
Really?
Does that sound familiar?
Never heard of them.
I think the UMass, our people. No, second dudes. Minutemen, that's the one. That Minute Maid? No, Minutemen. Although if they got a title sponsorship for Minute Maid, that would actually be good. Sorry, business manager in my head is kind of popping through there.
That's actually a really good idea, though.
No, absolutely.
Minute Maid Men. Is that what you would call them?
That's probably not going to work.
And then would you put their logos on the shoulder patches?
I would do that.
And
those
the pant
things,
shells?
Yeah, we might be pushing it a little bit there,
Okay.
but that can be a great revenue source. No question about that. It's interesting too. I mean, the Bandits do this. I mean, the season is post Kale Makar, and it was an interesting question as to how the team would do without one of the best players in the history of the Alberta Junior Hockey League. And you started to realize that as much as Kale Makar made the Brooks Bandits better, the way the Brooks Bandits play made Kale Makar so much better too. And I always love looking back, look back through all the highlights of Kale Makar. And one of the reasons he did so well and was so adept to being part of a highlight reel is he spent as much time below the face-off dots as he did above them when he was in the offensive zone. And not to say that he didn't do anything defensively. I still remember that. It will bug me to the end of time. When he got drafted, the guys in the NHL draft said, yeah, this is a guy who's all about offense and maybe thinks about defense after that. And it was at that point that I realized none of them had actually watched Kale Makar play a game of hockey, because that wasn't how it was one bit, but it was what made up the majority of his highlight reel, because, poke checks and stick lifts don't tend to make it into the reels. You and I know that as video guys. Sorry, defensemen, but it tends to be the goals and the assists and the hits.
Hey, no. I'm going to fight that right here, right now, because one time this year, I put Michael Bladen as the highlight of the night because he blocked, I think, 5 shots that night.
Yeah, blocks. That's
and 3 of them were very significant on 5-on-3s and in the dying seconds of the game. So I will say it happens once in a while.
So the highlight of the night was 3 different shot blocks?
Yes.
That sounds to me like you have a math problem there, Brandon.
It was the highlights of the night.
Sorry. I'm just not a nice person, but you knew that when you brought me on. But to that point, I mean, Kale's impact on the Bandit organization, I think on the AJHL in general, is going to be felt for quite some time. I mean, the fact he was on TSN when they had the final in 2019. The best thing that kind of summarizes his impact was we were getting ready for the NJAC final, and this would have been the semifinal where he did the puck drop. And the question that was asked by the Hockey Canada staff was, we got to script this, the introduction. What should we say? Like NCAA, Colorado Avalanche draftee, former Bandit, how long do we want it to be? I said, don't say any of that. Just say, ladies and gentlemen, to perform tonight's ceremonial puck drop, Kale Makar. Don't say anything before that, because everyone already knows who he is.
Yeah.
And it's like that phrase, a man who needs no introduction. He might be the only one that truly will never need an introduction, because all they had to do is say his name, which is, I guess, a type of introduction. I'll belabor that point. But all they had to do is say that, and the place absolutely erupted. And when you can have an effect like that, you know that just your very name is carrying a lot with it, and that's what he's going to do for quite some time. Not to mention him and his family. I mean, Taylor Makar, his brother, Gary Makar, his dad, everyone who knows them will tell you this family is among the nicest people you're ever going to interact with in the game of hockey, too.
When we talk about people that need no introduction, sounds like you and he came out to MC the opening ceremonies at the NJAC last year.
I think they did introduce me for that one, though. But my main point of pride for that is I think I got that whole opening ceremony done in 5 minutes. I mean, we kept it very, very tight. And anyone who's seen an opening ceremony of even like a, Bantam single A C group tournament would know that opening ceremonies are not easy to keep short.
You did a great job, though. You didn't let one person from a particular office in the city speak, and I think they did a great job in keeping it short.
Yep, but they did a great, I mean, they were there. I mean, the visuals were sensational, but it was, I'm going to clutch onto the mic like grim death, which is normally what I do anytime I have a microphone near me, which is probably why I haven't stopped talking since this broadcast began. even when you've had me muted, I've still been talking in the background. It's just no one's heard it.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't actually see your face from where I'm sitting, so I wouldn't.
That's usually a good thing.
I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
But
No,
hey.
consider yourself lucky.
You never know. Our dying seconds here, the second period. 2-1 for Brooks right now.
And blowing a corner, scrum dead. I love when the refs do that.
Isn't that your favorite type of whistle? Because then you can run a replay. And I'm
And
sure
which I'm
you
doing
wanted to
right
run
here.
a replay with 10 seconds left because you're probably
Look at
sitting
that
there.
save.
Offside. Out of play. Blow it dead. Puck out of play. Come
That
on.
is the best.
Somebody throw a water ball on the ice.
And it wasn't until I went to Vegas this year and saw a couple of Vegas Golden Knights games. Only team I've ever seen, they will run replays on the board while the game is still going on. They don't wait for a whistle. And the first time I saw it, I thought that is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And then I realized it was actually kind of cool because when you see the big saves and there's no whistle, the first thing you think is, wow, I really want to see that again. And so you want to look up at the board, and you might think, well, you're going to miss something on the ice. Well, if something happens on the ice, they're going to replay it.
Yeah,
So you're going to be
exactly.
fine either way. So,
So-
in another
so-
life,
so-
I may start doing that again.
So do they leave the game kind of like we are right now in the big section and just replay in a top corner, or they use the whole board
No,
for the replay?
yeah, they use the whole board.
Wow.
They go right to it, and the idea I think is that if you're more interested in what's going on the ice, then you're going to look at that yourself.
Yep.
And if you're looking at the board and you miss something, it's going to get replayed anyway, so you're going to be fine no matter what.
There's a lot of things that the Vegas Golden Knights do that a lot of teams should follow, and it's so funny how a franchise that comes in so I'm not going to say behind the game, but they only came into the league 3 years ago.
Yep.
And they're honestly the best at some aspects, and that fan interaction is right up there. I think
It's
you
like the Brooks
mentioned
Bandits of the NHL.
I think you mentioned that what was it, the warm up is just a dance party.
It is. It is so loud in that building, and I think we've all, in every AJHL franchise, had the fight about the music volume for warm-up. If Nathan Crosby's watching right now, and I will ask him when we bring him on,
Yep.
it is a fight that, was ongoing every year I was in Brooks. I'm sure it continued after I left. But in Vegas, the warm-up music is so loud, you can be on the concourse, and you cannot hear yourself talking. You've got to
Wow.
scream your order to the concession. It is so loud, and everyone loves it because everyone in the crowd is up. They're dancing. The main video board is just showing crowd shots for the entire warm-up and then cutting to players and showing information and all that kind of stuff. It was an eye-opening experience for sure. And I think that's going to be kind of the trailblazers in terms of what game presentation looks like at all levels of hockey eventually. 20 years ago, you would have said Junior A, teams will never need video boards. That's something for big NHL teams to do. And now look at the trend in even leagues like the AJHL. More and more teams are getting them, and hopefully more do in the near future.
I agree, 100%. If you can hear the pucks hit the glass louder than you can hear the music in warm-up, the warm-up music is not loud enough.
Yes,
There you
totally
go.
agree.
There you go. That is my theory on warm-up music, if you will. Should we dive into the third period here? It's 2-1 right now for the Brooks Bandits in Game 1 of the 2019 AJHL Final. I believe you said Nathan Crosby, the man who actually called this game, is going to join us here momentarily.
It'll be great. We'll hear his voice over his voice.
I wonder if he can redo some commentary.
I'll say, yeah, Nathan, can you watch the screen right now and just call this game all over again? We'll see if he uses the same words.
I wonder if he can, use the same words.
Yeah.
But, without further ado, here it is.
Really plays together. They really play tight hockey.
Oh, I love
with
that
good
overhead camera.
discipline.
So were you the one swiveling it there? Was that you on the operation?
If I was on replay, yes, because the replay person also controls the RoboCam in Brooks.
Fair enough.
Only because there's literally not enough room in that booth to put a separate person to control it.
Fair enough. One more period here, and I believe, what do we got? 4 more guests to get through, so
That's what our schedule says.
I don't know if that's going to happen. If we have to go over a little bit with a few guests, I'm sure it's not the end of the world.
We're the real attraction here, you know that. I am going to fire Nathan our link so that we can hopefully have him on in a bit.
Perfect.
What
One thing about this season that we're watching right now that I think surprised a lot of people, well, for one, was the Saints only being a 3rd seed, making it to the final. But the Bandits going toe-to-toe with PG in that Doyle Cup and then facing them in the NJAC final.
That was such a great story, wasn't it?
Oh.
And I love that it was those two leagues, the AJ and BC, because what I hate about the Doyle Cup is that only one team from Alberta or BC can make the national championship. But that year, they both got to go, and it was fantastic. It was an extension of that Doyle Cup. It was so much fun.
How big of a rivalry was brewed in such a short amount of time? How many games did you guys end up playing against them for one?
6.
It was only in the span of maybe less than a month.
Sorry, 8. 6-game Doyle, 2 games at the NJAC.
There's another goal for.
Simon Gravel scored. What a rarity, eh?
Those Brooks Bandits.
Just a pure sniper he was. But yeah, your question about and I'll ask Nathan about this when he comes on too, because it was a different kind of rivalry. I felt like you've got those rivalries that become heated, and there's a hatred brewing, and there wasn't enough time, I think, to really create that level of hatred. But it was almost like a respectful rivalry. It was like both of those teams were utterly determined to prove that they were better than the other. And I think that's what drove those to be such entertaining games. Every game of that Doyle, even though it didn't necessarily mean anything because both teams were going to the national championship no matter what. And then those 2 games to the National Junior A Championship, those were just, they were so much fun. Not to mention those jerseys the Bandits wore the time they played them in the group stage of the NJAC. That was pretty sensational too.
Those were some pretty fancy jerseys. Saints actually this year, talk about jerseys, it was the Humboldt game back in late January, just a great success. And you want to talk about hockey gods and things like that. We talk about them all the time. I'm going to leave this with the viewers and say that everybody that scored in that game where we wore those jerseys played with the guys who unfortunately lost their lives in that bus crash. So you want to talk about hockey gods. They are there, and I think they came out to play that night.
Definitely. They got a text from Nathan. Let's pop us off for a sec. Let's bring up the audio full here, and we'll just get Nathan figured out here.
Sounds good. We'll be back in just a bit.
Pushes the Saints back in their own end. Harker with it. Ryan Harker, former St. Albert Raider. Out to Trentham at center ice. He lifts it, bouncing puck for Gravel. He plays it over near the Bandit bench where William LeMay recovers it. LeMay setting up both of Simon Gravel's goals tonight. Those two, that would be what you call being on the same page as the Bandits are called for icing here.
Oh, very much so. And in those situations with those passes, it's all timing, and you got to throw the puck into space, not necessarily to the guy. And Gravel throws it across to LeMay as he's crossing the red line, entering space, and the same thing back. It's just Gravel uses good speed, gets the defenseman turned around, goes to the net, and LeMay just throws it into open space. Gravel makes no mistake.
Alrighty, we're back here with the man that called this game, Tyler King up top, Brandon in the middle, and there he is, Nathan Crosby, the play-by-play voice of game number 1. Nathan, thanks for taking the time here today.
Hey guys, happy Friday night. Glad to see that all of us have very busy social lives.
Yeah, because before quarantine, this was totally different for all of us, right?
Yeah. Let's use COVID as an excuse.
I think it's a great excuse.
Oh, totally. I mean, yeah, I need any excuse I can get. Nathan, let me jump off and ask you a bit about something Brandon and I were just talking about, not necessarily related to this game, but the series that followed, Brooks against Prince George. I mean, that was such a crazy time for us on the Bandit staff, that trip all the way up to northern BC, the craziness of that Doyle Cup, coming all the way back to play that team again in the National Junior A Championship. And how would you describe the level of hockey and maybe the level of intensity, too, that we saw when an AJHL champion took on a BCHL champion?
Yeah, it was. I mean, they were 2 great teams. That's what I remember. I was just watching the final of the National Junior A Championship between Brooks and Prince George, and Craig Button from TSN said at the very beginning of the broadcast, he's like, no doubt these are the 2 best teams in Canada, and it was kind of fitting that it ended up being those 2 that played for the national championship. And the reason it was fitting was because there had been so much buildup with the Doyle Cup and hosting the Spruce Kings here for 3 games and then heading up to PG. Tyler, you and I went, and it feels like we were there for a really long time.
It really does, yeah.
And, unfortunately for Brooks, that the Doyle Cup didn't go the way they had hoped. That arena in Prince George it's very unique. It's got a lot of character, I'll say that about it.
Remember when the press box would literally shake at some points?
The press box hangs from the ceiling, and it feels like twine.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't seem stable at all. And we're right over the players' benches, so you and I could look right down and right over top the benches and see who was on the ice, who was on the bench, who was being looked at by the medical staff. But Prince George really knew how to play well in that arena, and they had a well, I think they only lost one game in the BCHL playoffs last year. I think it was in the opening round, and then they just bulldozed their way through BC. Beating I think Chilliwack, Victoria, Vernon, like really good teams, and swept them all. So Prince George and Brooks, I thought, were the two best teams in the country last year, and so it was fitting that they ended up playing each other. Very similar teams too. Strong goaltending, strong D. You look at guys like Brandon Scanlon for Brooks, Leighton Ahak for Prince George, and very deep at forward, guys like Arno Vashon, who I was listening to earlier in the broadcast, Brian Mashy, William LeMay, who won the scoring title, and PG had guys like Patrick Causey, Ben Brar.
Your favorite, Chong Min Lee.
Chong Min Lee, very good. Yeah, it was. There wasn't much separating the two teams.
No question. And I keep talking about it on this broadcast, Nathan, but because of just how overwhelming an experience the National Junior A Championship was, we almost forget about how entertaining the AJHL playoffs were that year. I mean, in Brooks, hate to say it, but in the years where Brooks was good, we were used to them steamrolling through the AJHL playoffs on their way to some regional competitions. But that time round, Okotoks provided a very significant challenge in the South. And then even this series against Spruce Grove, I mean, it goes down as a sweep, but we're watching game one right now. It was a nail-biter to the final seconds, double overtime in game two. Do we maybe almost underestimate what a battle it was for these players to earn their way into a tournament that they were automatically in? A lot of teams could have just coasted their way through. They could have lost in the opening round. It wouldn't have mattered, but they didn't let that happen. And I think that's something that really impresses me about that year's Bandits team.
Absolutely, and we've seen CJHL teams in the past that get knocked out in their league playoffs early and then get well rested, that are hosting and go on to win the national championship because they've been able to sit around and wait for the other teams to come through. And that didn't happen for Brooks, and they did it the long way, but the correct way. And even a series you forgot that really I remember well from last year's playoffs was against Canmore.
Oh yes.
I mean, because that was supposed to be, Canmore was a 6th seed, and they upset Drumheller in 5 games. And Brooks was supposed to, that was supposed to be a quick series. And Canmore, led by some great goaltending by Thomas Davis, they were pesky, and they took game 3. Brooks needed overtime in game 4, a great overtime winner by Arno Vashon.
Skates right off the ice after.
Yeah, exactly. So that series, definitely, I think, but it was also, I think, good. It kind of was a bit of a wake-up call for Brooks to, these are the playoffs. Everyone's going to be trying to take something away from you. And it was kind of like how the regular season started with that 11-3 loss in Drumheller. Ryan Papuano has said that's probably the most important loss in, at least in recent team history.
Totally.
Because it was a wake-up call.
Yeah. No question about that. And then I just look back to that 2018-19 team, and just knowing that you and I were, around that squad for a full year. We split the broadcast. We both had times interviewing players, talking to these players, not to mention the staff who knew how big of a year it was. And I don't know if either of us will ever be able to put together the same level of admiration, respect that we had for that group. I mean, there wasn't a bad seed in the bunch or anything even resembling it. This was a team that was not only stacked in terms of talent, it was stacked as an organization in terms of character. Present company excluded, but I mean, outside of the business managers.
I thought you were talking about staff.
Yeah. No, sorry. Well, most of the staff for sure, but with one notable exception, but that's okay. I think, though, in a general sense, I mean, this was a group that deserved everything that came to them. I mean, it was never a fluke. There were never any shortcuts. And in a lot of cases, I think that gets lost in the shuffle. And I think, I'm not really asking a question, I'm more making a statement here. But I think in discussions between you and I, Nathan, I mean, that group is one that's going to stand out for anyone that had the pleasure of interacting with them.
Absolutely. Everyone knew their role, and everyone did it really well. I talked to the captain, Nathan Plessy, a few weeks ago. Did a Zoom interview with him, and then everyone kind of checked their ego at the door. Everyone was on the same page. Everyone had a different role on the team, and there were no superstars per se. It was, we all kind of do this together or it's not going to work. And everyone bought into it. the buy-in from the players last year was what really, I think, set Brooks apart. Is everyone had that goal that, May 19, home ice, packed arena. You wanted to be there to lift the national championship trophy. That was always the goal for this team, and they never took their eyes off the prize, even when things seemed to, go sideways. The Okotoks South Final, that was a good series, where I think they really matured as a group. The league final, what's crazy about the league final is you and I have gone on about how the AJHL hasn't had very good league finals over its history. A lot of, like, I look back at the 2017 league final, Brooks Whitecourt, and the Bandits, smoked them.
Yep.
Whereas the 19 final between Brooks and Spruce Grove, the Bandits swept, but outside of game 3, which I think was the largest margin of victory.
Yep, 5-1.
Yep.
Those were tight games, especially game 2, the one you called and Brandon called, the double overtime. That really was the swing game of the series, much like game 4 of the South Final versus Okotoks went to overtime. Those were really the games that kind of swung it in either team's favor. And the Bandits, they may have swept Spruce Grove in that league final, but certainly it didn't feel like a sweep. It felt like a really hard fought 4-game series.
Yeah. No, I called a sweep that year in 2017. This one was not similar in one bit. You're absolutely right about that. And I got to ask Nathan, because it must have been such an experience, 2019, that final game, that final that you got to call the team winning a national championship. And I've seen you do it. I've seen the video of it. But what I can't do is necessarily relate to the feeling of it when that final buzzer goes, and especially in a one-goal game where you didn't know until the final shot was blocked that it was going to be the result that it was. How would you describe that feeling when that final buzzer went, trying to make the call, but also, I'm sure, trying to absorb the moment at the same time?
Very surreal, and I hardly remember what I said. I just listened to a recording of it because everything, your adrenaline's going, and all of a sudden things are happening, and what a game it was, what a finish it was, because watching it the other night, the Bandits had a comfortable 4-1 lead in the third period, and even the broadcasters on TSN were starting to, talk about other things. They had kind of thought it was wrapping up, but to the Spruce Kings' credit, they came back hard, and we were at the end of the ice where Logan Neaton was in his, Logan Neaton's end of the ice, rather, was where we were calling it. So it was really hard to see Pierce Charleston's net, which is where all the action was happening in that final minute. As you know, where we were situated in the CRA for that tournament, that, all I remember was looking at the clock, praying that it would just get to 0, because it felt like Prince George had just all of a sudden found that belief that they were going to tie this thing up. But time, fortunately for the Bandits, ran out on Prince George, and it's a moment I'll always cherish. I remember our color commentator and good friend Ken Fleury, gave me a big bear hug, and Matt Wong, the then goaltending coach for Brooks, he wrapped his arms around me and was jumping up and down, and some things were said over the air that the CRTC, had they been listening, probably wouldn't have appreciated too much. But I think we could have been forgiven for that moment, because it was just so exciting. And my parents and my family were in the building watching, and they were very, they didn't, they don't live here, but they were really invested in that team. They loved the team. They loved the game. They thought it was just great hockey. It was, I think, one of, whenever someone knocks Brooks, I'm not talking about the team, I'm talking about the city, and people like to, take jabs at us. I just refer back to that moment when we had an arena that was sold out of people up on their feet cheering, and it was just a special moment. And how can this be a bad place? Look what's happening here. This is so special, and there's very few towns across this country that could pull this off.
Totally agree. No question about that. Nathan, I believe I was going to make a joke there when you talked about you couldn't remember what you said. I was going to make the Simpsons reference and say you were yelling, "We won, we won." Unfortunately, since I bet on Prince George, we won't be going for pizza.
Oh, darn. Well, I was hoping you would figure out some way to get a Simpsons reference.
I gotta get one. Gotta get one. Exactly right.
For some reason, I'm thinking about the grandpa when he's fighting with the alligator to get his dentures back. I don't know why that's mine, but I was trying to work that in as a metaphor in this and failed miserably.
Yeah, it describes a lot of AJHL games I've seen in the past, but maybe not the close ones. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Nathan, really appreciate you making the time, man. Great chatting with you again. I'm sure we'll meet up again soon, and thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks to you guys for putting this on tonight. It's great to revisit this game. This is actually I called this game, but out of all the games in this league final, this is the one I had the most difficult remembering because Game 2 was so memorable.
Yeah.
Game 3, I remember lots of things that night because it was a large margin of victory for Brooks, but also I remember Corson Coolman's had a big game, and that same night, Kale Makar scored his first NHL goal, and then of course Game 4 was the championship night. So I was like, Game 1, what happened in Game 1? But apparently I called it.
Yep, and you did a heck of a job. Appreciate it as always, Nathan. Here's hoping you're calling a lot more in the near future in the next few months here.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Brandon. Keep up the great work. Really enjoying I hope you guys are doing more games like this.
Absolutely. All right, that's Nathan Crosby. Our thanks to him. We'll continue to hear him because he's calling this game currently, and that was good to hear his thoughts in retrospect and his thoughts currently at the time as the Bandits hold on to a 2-goal advantage. But, Brandon, I'll throw it over to you because I will set up our next guest here in the next few seconds.
You bet. Nathan, yeah, you're good to hang up. And it's cool when you talk about everybody talks about the players and the experience, and of course that is usually at the forefront, but the staff that works so hard all season behind the scenes to pull something like that off, and just for you guys to have a special bond and remember that almost to the same level that the players remember each other is it's pretty special to revisit. I remember going back to the 2018 AJHL final, and I got the same relationship with a lot of the people that were involved with that. Tom Strangward, of course, he called a game. I was right beside him doing color, and even the coaches, some of whom are not with the Spruce Grove Saints anymore. They've moved on or have taken head coaching positions in other spots. And the trainers, all the players. Anytime a team wins a championship of some sort, doesn't really matter, I think, now if you're a player, a staff member, a coach, trainer, parent, billet, doesn't matter. You're all a part of it, and you're all a huge reason why the success occurred, and it's really cool to revisit those things and just share the bond that the sport of hockey brings to a lot of people that are involved in it. And Tyler, I don't want to spoil it, but who's coming on next here? Is it a member of the Brooks Bandits or is it a member of the Spruce Grove Saints?
Well, since I'm the one figuring it out, one would hope it's a Brooks Bandits player. But
you never know, though.
Yeah, we're hoping to get...
you don't know.
No, for sure. We're hoping to get Captain Nathan Plessis on. I realized I mixed up the Pacific time zone difference there, so I may have given him the wrong time accidentally. So hopefully he gets my message.
And you're making fun of my math earlier.
I know. Hey, everyone knows I can't actually meet the standards I set for other people. That's what makes me such a massive hypocrite.
Well, you know what? We're not going to talk about that.
Fair enough.
Let's talk about possibly doing this a little bit more. And
hey, Nathan suggested it, so I'm pretty sure we have to now.
I know.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be a Spruce Grove Brooks game. It could be anybody from across the AJHL. We'd be happy to check it out and promote the league a little bit more, and at least get some kind of live sport, even though it's not 100% live. It's live on YouTube, so people might be able to get a little bit of their sports fix off of it. But Tyler, maybe we'll talk about the pro ranks here just a little bit before we get our next guest on here. The latest thing I've heard is a 24-team NHL playoff scenario, possibly hosted by the city of Edmonton. That's awesome, but then you remember there's no fans, so you remember that, hey...
It doesn't really matter where it goes, right?
All of my favorite players might be there, but I'm not going to be able to go in the building unless somehow I can work something out to maybe work in the production truck. But just your thoughts on that and where it could maybe go here for the league. And I know that you were the business manager for the Bandits for a number of seasons, and how the NHL really needs to finish this season because of the business side of things. It's not necessarily to get the guy to lift the trophy. It's because of all the money tied up in deals across the league with sponsors and broadcasters, etc.
Yeah, I'd say it's so different from what we're used to at the junior hockey level, because people talk about doing games without fans, and that really can't be done at the junior level because you're so reliant on gate revenue.
100%.
But when you get to the pro level, it's still a major part of the business operation of a team, but there's a much greater mix. There's a much larger bag in which everything's mixed together in terms of how your business case works. And I won't try to become a capologist or anything like that and explain how it affects hockey-related revenue and escrow for the players, which puts it into their advantage to see games played, but it's definitely very different from what we're used to down at this level. So I'm hoping it happens if they can make it happen safely, and I think it would be, frankly, something pretty inspirational for people to show that we can still make something like that happen, even with restrictions. It can show us that a semi-normal life is still possible until we're at a state where everything can be done safely the way it used to be. So I've certainly got my fingers crossed that it's going to work out.
Yeah, it would be really exciting. I hope that other leagues can follow suit as well, and the NBA can figure out a way to come back. And I mean, the NFL's got a lot of time, so hopefully everything's cleared up by then. One thing here is lacrosse in this building that we usually host that maybe has a little bit of a season coming down the pipe, maybe in July. The CFL is not looking good, and hopefully they're able to work something out. And of course, the Toronto Blue Jays, our country's team, have not been able to start a season either. So a lot of things up in the air, and of course, we care about sports. There's of course a lot more important things that we should care about as well, and people's health and making sure everybody stays healthy if we are to once again go back to the way life used to be pre-COVID-19. Step aside here maybe for a couple minutes, come back and bring in another member of the Brooks Bandits here as we continue to watch Game 1 of the 2019 AJHL Final.
Gainey has just cut into the Bandit lead. It's now 3-2 Brooks. Don't go anywhere. 7:46 to go in regulation, and the Saints capitalize on an odd man rush.
Odd man rush is a great play by Fighton as he just picks it off at neutral, and what a shot by Gainey. Just picks the blocker side to make this a 3-2 hockey game. So the Saints finding a way here with 7:46 left in this third period. Now trailing only by 1.
Gainey second on the team in points in these playoffs with his 5th. And it's a 3-2 Bandit lead. 7:46 to play. And the Bandits trying to hold on here in Game 1.
Number 9, Logan Gainey. Assist by number 28, Nick Lair. And by number 15, Parker Soretsky. The time of the goal, 12 minutes, 14 seconds.
Second point of the night for Soretsky. He's been in on both Saint goals. Scanlon in his own end has the puck. Plays it in front of his own net for Ryan Mashy. He's got a goal in this game. He'll skate through center ice. See if he can get 2 here as he dumps it into the near corner. Skates behind the Saint net. Poke loose to Christie. In front for Vashon. It goes off a Saint stick. Spruce Grove will skate it out to neutral. Byro near side for Peckford. He one-hands it into the Bandit zone. Comes back to Christie, though, in neutral. Ray Christie ahead for Vashon. Carries in on a 2-on-2. Puck rolls off his stick. Davis gets it back, but turns it over to Ray Christie. He shoots from the right circle. I think it went off a Saint and out of play. So the faceoff should come inside the Spruce Grove end with 6:57 to go here in the third.
Yeah, it should stay inside, but we'll have the break here.
We'll step aside. Don't go anywhere. Nail biter here in Game 1 on Martin Chrysler Bandits Hockey on Real Country 105.7.
Hi, I'm Justin Boston's Jim.
Okay, 1 minute here.
Brooks. We're having a U.S. trade event April 26th and 27th here at Davis Chev. If you own a truck or SUV, bring it by for an appraisal. The U.S. dollar is strong right now, and with interested U.S. buyers both on-site and off, we can give you the best value for your vehicle. So bring your truck or SUV to see us on April 26th or 27th. We'll buy yours even if you don't buy ours. Don't miss the U.S. trade event at Davis Chev Brooks. For more details, see davisbrooks.ca.
Drive shafts, flywheels, pipe rollers, and more. You're using specialized equipment that lets you work smarter, not harder. But when a custom part breaks, you can't outsmart that. You need Markin Machining. When you can't find it anywhere else, Markin Machining can make it, mill it, cut it, drill it, thread it, or fabricate it. And in many cases, it's even better than the original part. For custom fabrication, repairs, custom treading, line boring, and more, get Markin Machining, a proud sponsor of the Brooks Bandits.
3-2 Brooks in Game 1 with 6:57 to go in the third period. Welcome back to the CRA. Nathan Crosby with Ken Fleury. Want to remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Martin Chrysler. Visit their Express Lane, servicing all makes and models in under 30 minutes. Bandits had a 3-1 lead, but Logan Gainey has cut into that lead And it's now just a 1-goal advantage for Brooks as Nick Layer carries in past the blue line, shoots off a Bandit stick out of play. So the faceoff will be inside Pierce Charleston's zone. Ken, what is key for Brooks here with under 7 minutes to play to hang on to this lead?
Oh, puck's not a hot potato. You need to manage it. And on that last goal, Ethan Lund throws it up the middle. Lair grabs it out of the air and has an odd man rush. Luke Bass backs in, and Gainey gets to walk right into the hash marks and let a screenshot go. So you got to play smart. You got to manage the puck better.
Lee on the draw, and they'll redo it though to the left of Charleston. Bandits outshot in this period 4-2 by Spruce Grove. Quick look at the Cal Tire out of town scoreboard. Prince George now up 1-0 on Vernon over in the BCHL final in game 1. Off the face-off, it's one on net. Pierce Charleston will hang on to this puck after it comes into his crease, and will redo that face-off to the left. I'm interested to see if Vernon can push Prince George, who's been terrific through these BCHL playoffs.
I just think they're such a heavy team. They've got a great back end, and they get a 1 or 2 goal lead on you. I don't know. They'll be real tough. I suspect it'll be Prince George, but who knows?
Quite the playoff run for the Vernon Vipers, though. They weren't really expected out of all those great teams, but here they are in the final after knocking out Wenatchee, the defending champs in the league semi. Bandits get it out down the ice. Gravel won't beat out the draw, and then afterwards Lloyd trips him up and he falls over into the end boards, and nothing will come of it with 6.5 to play here in the third period.
And an icing here, so the Bandits trying to get the back end changed but won't be able to, is the icing call. Lee did get on the ice though. So it will be Lee.
And we're pleased to be joined on the broadcast by former Brooks Bandits captain Nathan Plessy, who I completely messed this up with because I don't understand how time zones work. Nathan, appreciate you covering for my mistake and making some time for us.
No problem. Yeah, my dad was watching the broadcast, so he's figured I was probably having to hop on soon.
Yeah, fair enough. For last few minutes of the third period, looking back to game 1 of the AJHL final, and Nathan, I've asked everybody this, but when you look back to that 2019 year, as much as the national championship is what stands out for everybody, how do you remember the march to that championship, the playoff run you guys had, and a sweep of Spruce Grove that I think was a lot more challenging than just a 4-0 series would kind of indicate?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I think the season definitely had more ups and downs internally, I think, than you saw on the outside. There was a lot of times where it felt like we weren't playing our best hockey, but kind of powered through, and then the playoffs started to come together again, and I felt like we played a really good series against Spruce Grove. Obviously, game 2 went to double overtime, so that one could have gone either way and essentially swung the series. So, yeah, like you said, I think it was a lot closer than people kind of remember.
We've talked a lot about how tight that group was and how well you guys got along together. But thinking of the leadership group, and I know I asked you this question a lot in 2018-19, but the fact that the leadership group and the guys who'd been there the longest were there for a national championship where you guys fell just short. How much did that impact, the hunger of those guys, yourself, Arno Vashon, Jake Tice, guys who'd been through it before? What kind of an effect did that have on that season, that final season for you guys?
Yeah, I think we all knew that there's a lot at stake, and we knew that we were going to have a crack at it again, regardless of how the season went. But obviously, we wanted to go in the right way, kind of like how we did when we went to Coburg. So I think that definitely fueled us quite a bit, and just having that experience of making the run definitely helped. I mean, it's a long trip to the finals. I think we played 87 games last year, so people aren't used to that, and I think guys coming in weren't used to that. But it was nice to have us three kind of been through that to be able to kind of guide that process.
And for guys at your age, I mean, to play, more than an NHL regular season schedule, I mean, it has to be something that wears on you by the time you get to that final game. And when I think back to that national championship game, how much did the fact that place was absolutely packed, almost like it had never been before, and the place was as loud as it probably had ever been, even though, you guys as players have been doing this for so long, and I'm sure you were down to the fumes that were left in the tank by the time you got to the national final, what did the energy in that building do to that group on the bench?
Yeah, that definitely carried us. I think that was kind of evident in the start of the game. We had the first period was pretty, the ice was kind of tilted our way, so that I think definitely factored into that, and the whole week really. I mean, I remember there was shifts in Coburg 2 years previously that I felt pretty gassed on. And there's games where it's like, it's tough to kind of, obviously you get up for them because it's a national championship, but it's tough. Your body's definitely feeling it. But I think the energy in the building and the energy around the city actually fueled us a lot too. So in Brooks, I think it was a totally different game for us.
Totally. And as you moved into NCAA this past year at Brown, and it was such a great story for you, 3 years in Brooks, you end up moving on to an Ivy League school. And I wonder what that transition was like for you, both in terms of the hockey side and also the life side, getting back to hitting the books as well, and in what turned out to be such a crazy year for everybody.
Yeah, it was good. Hockey-wise, we had kind of a bit of a lull in the middle of the season, and the NCAA season is so short. I think 29 games was our regular season. So if you go on a little bit of a skid, it's kind of hard to climb back in. But I thought that we kind of rallied towards the end, and it's definitely good to get used to that brand of hockey and the physicality and just the speed, because it's obviously a step up. And then on the school side is definitely a challenge at first to get on your feet again with the classroom. But I was used to doing some classes online for my transfer credits when I was in Brooks. So when we transitioned to online at the end of the year, it actually felt a little more familiar. But no, it was good. And then I love being at the school, and the city of Providence was great too.
I asked, last thing for you, I asked Ryan Mashy the same thing, but as you're more than a year now removed from probably the biggest moment in your hockey career, what do you miss most about being in the AJHL and being a Brooks Bandit?
I think definitely the camaraderie with the team. Obviously in college you have that same bond, but there's other things like the schooling, and then guys live near the school and maybe go home for a weekend or something. But in Brooks, you're a very tight-knit group because everyone's there for the 8 months that you're there. You're going to be together pretty much every day. So I wouldn't say that it was lacking in college, but I think juniors is just kind of another level because you're together so much. And then obviously the support of the community and everything was huge for us. So I would say that definitely just the tight-knit group.
No question about that. Well, Nathan, great talking to you again. Great to see you again, and really appreciate you doing this. Here's hoping we get to chat again in the near future, and here's hoping next season goes well for you as well.
Thanks a lot. You too, Tyler.
That's Nathan Plessy, former captain of the Brooks Bandits in their 2019 National Junior A Championship winning campaign. And my thanks to him for dealing with my inability to realize that in BC it's an hour back, not an hour forward, because the Earth rotates either that way or that way. I still don't really know. But I'll give some time for Brandon to get his next guest set up back from the Spruce Grove side as we head into the final minutes. And good, it just shows my inability to remember things. But, of course, it was a major power play in the dying minutes of this one for Spruce Grove after a blow to the head penalty called against Brooks. And it really just puts into perspective how easy it is to forget how close this series was. We think of it as a 4-0 type of situation, but this one, and then even more so Game 2 with that double overtime winner from Simon Gravel, this series could have been extremely different after the first two, and it really shows just how talented these two squads were and what a great performance they put out on the ice for the people that packed both arenas to see it. No question about that. Throw it back over to Brandon.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Now joined by a former member of the Spruce Grove Saints, Matt Rempy. He played in this series. He played the full last season with the Spruce Grove Saints. Matt, first off, I'd like to thank you for taking the time here this evening.
Oh, thank you.
What do you remember just off the top of your head from this series and last year as a member of the Spruce Grove Saints? We're watching, of course, Game 1 right now of the 2019 final. What are some takeaways for you from last season?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun being a 16-year-old in the league, coming in. Just a lot of learning experiences, especially on such a good team like Spruce Grove. Going there to Brooks into the finals, just a lot of fun. Like, it was great atmosphere. Like, all the guys we were up for it. We were really excited, and it was just a lot of fun.
And then yourself this season, you transitioned to the Seattle Thunderbirds in the Western Hockey League, and you go there and have a pretty successful rookie campaign, 31 points in 47 games. I like to ask a lot of players this. How would you describe the transition from Junior A to Major Junior in the Western League?
Yeah, well, Spruce Grove really set me up for success. Really helped my development and stuff coming into Seattle this year, and it's a kind of a different type of playing style. It's more physical. especially in the U.S. division where I play in, and I feel like, yeah, just more physical and kind of like sometimes it's a little bit faster, I think, in some aspects, but I think they're both great leagues.
When you take a look back here at this series against the Brooks Bandits, of course it took you guys 3 series to get to that final series, and being the 3 seed going into the playoffs that season, going to take on Drayton Valley and then Bonnyville and then Sherwood Park. Describe kind of your first playoff run as a rookie in the AJHL.
Yeah, it was really exciting, a lot of fun. I remember I got a strep throat during it, so I was out for a while, so that kind of sucked. But it was a lot of fun just going to Drayton. We won there, and then Sherwood Park series, that was just such a great battle, great fans in every game, and then of course going to Brooks, it was just a great atmosphere, and it was a lot of fun.
Can you just let the viewers know how close this series was? I know Game 3 was a bit more the Bandit side of things, but 1, 2, and 4, those games in that series were oh so close, and a bounce could have went either way at any point, especially Game 2 at double overtime. But can you just touch on how close this series really was and how just Brooks, by I'm going to say luck of bounces, I know TK is listed on the other side, but just how close this series was?
Yeah, it was really close, really hard fought. Like you said, every game, like we were in it, especially like that double overtime game, like that was so close. That was a heartbreaker, but it was a lot of fun. It was so close. Like we could have won. It would have been nice to win one in Brooks. I think that would have given us a lot of momentum going back to Spruce. But yeah, it was really close.
Can you just describe a little bit for the viewers about how your season ended this year, all the unknowns, and how the plug was just pulled out from nowhere? I know that you guys just qualified for the playoffs, and you guys were getting set to go in again. I believe there was, around 8 to 10 games left in the Western League, and just unfortunately you guys don't get to finish those and don't get to see how you would have done in the playoffs.
Yeah, like I think we had 5 games left originally because we were in Seattle, and that was like where the virus was, like the hub. It was just starting there, and we were gonna play with no fans. Like we were scheduled to play against Spokane, I think, on a Tuesday with no fans, and then a couple of days later we're at the rink and we get called in. We're like, you guys gotta go home. You guys gotta be quarantined here in Seattle. Like the season's postponed. We had to stay there in Seattle for a couple of days, and then eventually we went home and it was canceled. It was crazy. Like nothing like this has happened before, so it was really surprising.
And how are you doing right now with all the current conditions in the world? I'm sure you're back in Calgary and doing your best to work out from home and try to get prepared for next season.
Yeah, exactly. Just working out at home. It sucks not getting on the ice at all, but I have a nice little gym in my basement, and you got to make the most out of the situation, try to improve as much as you can.
Well, Matt, appreciate your time today, and best of luck to yourself, hopefully when you get back on the ice with the T-Birds in September.
Thank you very much.
Matt Rempy joining us here, former Spruce Grove Saint, played last year with the Saints and is now a proud member of the Seattle Thunderbirds in the Western Hockey League. TK, 30 seconds left in this one.
We're going to put out our predictions for how this one's going to end.
We all know how it ends. We don't need to rub it in.
Let's let Nathan take her home.
25 seconds on the clock. It rolls into the Bandit bench. The door was open, and it rolled in there. This faceoff will come outside the Spruce Grove end with tensions at an all-time higher at the CRA. The Bandits clinging on to a 1-goal lead with 25 seconds on the clock.
That's a great break for the Bandits as they're making the change. And we just got to highlight what a save by Pierce Charleston on the Lloyd shot. But that's a great break because 24.2, you can win this draw. You can backpedal a little bit and fire it back down. You can virtually kill this hockey game off. So the Saints will be looking. I don't think they're going to try and go back. I think they're just going to try and go forward, but the Bandits will take a time out here.
Right in front of their bench will be the face-off after Pierce Charleston made his best save of the night. Great right pad save on the Saints. TJ Lloyd, who had 45 points in the regular season, was named the best defenseman in the league. So when you're stopping him, I think a great confidence boost for Charleston after allowing that second goal.
Well, I'm just going to say this in no disrespect to TJ Lloyd. I think he's a great hockey player. But watching him in this hockey game and watching Brandon Scanlon in this hockey game, I would beg to differ with that one. And I'm just going to say it because Brandon Scanlon has just been so good for this hockey club and just so dominant out on the ice, especially tonight.
Scanlon, who appeared in 40 regular season games, so he missed a third. And I think that really affected
Are you on
getting
music too,
nominated.
TK?
He missed a good
No,
chunk at the
no,
beginning
I
of
never.
the year.
I got to do music for a few preseason games
But
though,
then
and
was
I always
just-
had so
he
much fun.
just scorched the league there through January and February. He was named the February Player of the Month for the Bandits, two-time defensive player in the league. As he pokes it out down the ice off the face-off, the Saints can't do anything on the control with 10 seconds to go. Vashon is going to try and tie up the puck on the end boards with 8 seconds on the clock. The puck in the Spruce Grove end. Vashon, great work by the alternate captain to freeze it on the boards. Final seconds ticking off here. The clock stops. Game is not over yet. With 1.3 seconds left, Vashon gets a cheer from the crowd here as he kills off about 10 seconds there in the Saints end.
And Bram Stevens would like about 20 seconds put back on the clock, but I think he's only going to get 1 or 2.
Yeah, the clock did run a bit there after the whistle. It was hard to tell because it got really loud in here, nearly 1,800 in the CRA. Face-off should be in the Spruce Grove end. And
1,800, is that for real?
Great work by
1741
Scanlon.
was the announced
Tie up
attendance
man
that
on the
night.
near side and get it down the ice.
I appreciate teams that are accurate on their attendance.
The
1
face-off
second left. We had to
in
get
the
one
wrong
in.
end if you're Spruce Grove with the amount of time you have to try and tie this.
The old Clyde, when you
Bandits
work for the
trying to
team, you
hold
round
on here
up.
and
So
win game
1741 is nearly
Nathan
1,800.
Plessy comes
That
on
works.
the ice
I
and
get
yells
that.
to his
That's fine.
players. Gonna put out my line instead.
Just
So
can't add
Vashon
another
and
digit.
LeMay will head off. It's gonna be Plessy, Boyko, Wolski, and 1 out there for the Bandits. We'll see what the clock is set to. The referee's over at the timekeeper right now.
The end of this game was like the end of an NBA game.
I'm thinking a couple. I'm thinking 3.5. But
A couple timeouts each side, a couple technical fouls.
shouldn't be any more than 3-4 seconds.
And in case we haven't
You know
set
what'd be
it up
great?
tonight, game 2.
If they could go to video replay to see when they should
Tickets.bricksbandits.ca.
stop the
So we
clock.
had 2 seconds onto the
Things
clock.
to look
So
forward
it's
to.
3.3. Face off in the Spruce Grove end, though. Davis is back in his net. Plessy to take it, wins it in the near corner. The Brooks Bandits are going to hang on and take game 1. 3-2 is the final. They skate over to Pierce Charleston to congratulate him as the Bandits take the first game of this best-of-7 league final by 1 goal.
Well, there you go, a 3-2 victory for Brooks in game number 1 of the 2019 AJHL final. TK back with myself, Brandon Wincheshin. Pretty good hockey game, I got to say, and special thanks to all the guests that came on throughout the last 2 hours or so. Tyler, I guess, you know, we said it so many times tonight, it was a sweep, but that game and 3 out of 4 games were very close. They could have went either way, and I'm sure you, me, Nathan, a lot of other people would have liked to see a game 5 or 6 in that series.
Well, I wouldn't have because I wanted them to be rested for the Doyle Cup. But no, from the sake of what fans deserved, I think, yeah, absolutely right. The more that teams like that play against each other, the better it is for the AJHL. I mean, it pushed things to another level when you had talented franchises like that taking each other on. And you just think back, I mean, it's really historic when you look over that decade of the 2010s. Almost every year was a Brooks Spruce Grove league final, and one of those 2 teams made the league final every year of that decade. It's really just incredible to look at it and see what kind of dominance those organizations had. We mentioned it probably a couple hours ago early on this broadcast, the issue of finding room for all the banners in the CRA and Brooks in the Grand Fear Arena in Spruce Grove. It's a heck of a fun problem for them to have. But as we talked about over the course of this last season with how GP pushed Spruce Grove despite being heavily favored, a tightening of the league is what we're hoping to see. It's a little bit later than what we saw in BC when teams started to elevate there and everyone else rose to match it. I think the AJHL has been doing the exact same thing, and that's why I'm really hoping we get a full season coming up this year. Of course, there's more important considerations than just hockey when it comes to that, but if we do, I'm going to be very interested to see how other franchises adapt. I'm rambling a little bit here, as you know I'm wont to do, Brandon, but I just look at the recruiting announcements that are being made by teams from across the AJHL now, very, very similar to what we saw from Brooks over the last 7-8 years. Players from all over, players from leagues we'd never heard of before, going beyond just your standard pipelines and trying to open it up and really focus on graduating players to the NCAA game. I think it's great to see, and I really hope we see franchises see it pay off for them as well.
An unconventional offseason sure makes for some unconventional recruiting tools, and like you said, finding players in leagues that we didn't even know existed before they were announced. And like you said, I hope there is a full season, and as the parity in the league starts to get closer and closer each year, and really off the ice as well with the social media and the video production and all that stuff. It's nice to see how much each team is growing and how the league is growing as a whole. And one day, at the level of the BCHL and all the other leagues across the country, and there's not much more to say beyond that.
Beyond that, this was a lot of fun. I think
that was a lot of fun.
This was a great idea. I can't believe you let me be the number one square, that like you put me above you. I
have so many buttons in front of me right now.
Yeah, and you could have pushed one of them probably to swap it. If I was ticking you off, you probably could have bumped me down to like number 3 position, but you let me stay at the top, which absolutely baffles me, but I will take it as a compliment. I think the guests we had on were fantastic. I'm amazed everything worked without any major... Oh, I knew... Well, but now it's still the wrong name. Now you're Tyler apparently. I don't look like a Brandon. I think I look more like a Clark than a Brandon. But anyway, that's not important. What is important is I got to say thanks to all the players who came on to chat with us. I think that was fantastic. The people who tuned in, I think that was just great to see, a great example of AJHL hockey down on the big screen down in our bottom right corner. And I really hope we can do this again, whether it's Bandits Saints games or whether it's some great AJHL classics. I think this is a league and with a lot of teams that deserve to be celebrated. And heck, I don't have much else to do besides do some celebrating over the next few months.
Exactly. Well, Tyler, appreciate you taking the time to come here today and co-host this broadcast with me. It was a lot of fun. And like I said, hopefully we can do it a few more times here in the future. And hopefully we can make this a weekly thing, maybe not 2 hours, maybe about 20 minutes during the regular season, and then go around the league a little bit and share some clips, share some highlights, and highlight one of the best junior A leagues in the country.
Would love it. My schedule's wide open for you.
Thanks for watching. We will talk to you next time.